Chapter 457. In order to avoid being criticized again, Li Mu did not stay in Chang'e Palace for long after he returned. This way, even if the demon sect still had spies in the palace, they would only think that the Empress thought highly of him and would often summon him to Chang'e Palace to discuss matters of state. They would not spread rumors that he had an affair with the Empress and was a gigolo she kept in the palace. In the Li residence, Wanwan and Xiaobai were in the front and back respectively. Li Mu lay comfortably on a chair, enjoying the service of their little hands. Although he was comfortable, Li Mu could not help but feel a trace of melancholy in his heart. The residence was too big and had countless rooms. There were only 3 of them and they only slept in one room and one bed. The huge residence seemed especially cold and cheerless. In short, the residence lacked a mistress. Just as this thought arose, Li Mu's vision blurred, and a figure appeared in the courtyard. Xiaobai's eyes curved as she giggled and said, "Sister Zhou, you're here?" Wanwan stared at a box in the Empress's hand and asked curiously, "Sister Zhou, what are you holding in your hand?" Zhou Yi handed the box to her and said, "This is a new type of pastry that the imperial chef developed. Tastes pretty good, try it." Wanwan did not have time to massage Li Mu's legs. She hugged the box and ran to the stone table with Xiaobai, impatiently trying out the new pastry developed by the imperial chef. Li Mu, who had not yet reacted, was still lying comfortably on the chair. Zhou Yi glanced at him and asked, "Are you waiting for me to massage your legs and shoulders?" The Empress was standing, so Li Mu did not dare to lie down. He immediately flipped over and said, "Your Majesty, please?" When the Empress lay down where he had been lying, Li Mu realized that the 2 of them were standing in an inappropriate position. The Empress was standing and he could not lie down. Otherwise, it would seem like he was waiting for the Empress to serve him. However, the Empress was lying down while he was standing. Some things could be seen clearly from a bird's eye view. Li Mu didn't even dare to lower his head. Suddenly, a thought flashed through Li Mu's mind. He walked behind the Empress and said, "Your Majesty, aren't your shoulders a bit sore? Why don't I give your Majesty a massage?" "Your Majesty's shoulder massaging technique is not bad," Zhou Yi said faintly. "You must have gotten familiar with that vixen when you were in Thousand Fox Country. Back in the palace, I didn't see you being so attentive to me. I didn't expect my subject to be trained by a vixen." Li Mu was startled and a thought flashed through his mind. The Empress was obviously jealous of Phantom Princess. When he was in Chang'e Palace he only wanted to come back and find Wanwan and Xiaobai. He didn't realize that the Empress was hinting at him. This wasn't the first time Li Mu noticed that the Empress had a strong possessive desire for him. This didn't mean that the Empress had fallen in love with him. Possessiveness was human nature. She wasn't the only one who wanted to possess Li Mu. Li Mu also wanted to possess her. Not to mention anything else, if the Empress had another subject who was as good to him as she was to herself, Li Mu wouldn't feel comfortable in his heart. Li Mu secretly broke into a cold sweat for himself. Fortunately he came to his senses early. If he persisted until night fell, he would inevitably be beaten up in his dreams. Zhou Yi looked quite domineering, but she was actually more of a woman than anyone else. She would never say what was on her mind. Instead, she would let Li Mu guess it himself. If he guessed it right, everyone would be happy. If he guessed wrong, she would vent her anger in his dreams. It must be because she didn't enjoy the same treatment as Phantom Princess. Her tone was as if she had drunk an entire jar of aged vinegar. Li Mu took the initiative to put his hands on her shoulders. He rubbed here and there and finally calmed her down. She lay there comfortably and closed her eyes to rest. She didn't speak anymore. At a certain moment, Li Mu said softly, "There is an important matter that I would like to discuss with your Majesty." Zhou Yi closed her eyes and said, "Speak." Li Mu organized his words and said, "This time when I was undercover in Jianghu country, I discovered something. The reason why most of the demons hate the Great Zhou and hate humans is because of the unfairness between humans and demons in the Great Zhou. When demons harm humans, they will be destroyed by the imperial court. However, humans can kill demons wantonly, take their souls, and steal their monster cores. They can even do crueler things to demons. This is actually the root of the conflict between humans and demons. If we want to improve the relationship between humans and demons and promote the stability of the counties, we can only pass the imperial court's legislation." Zhou Yi's eyes were still closed. She said, "Most of the courtiers and even the common people have an inexorable prejudice against demons. Many people will oppose this matter." Li Mu said, "I think that the people of the 36 counties are the people of the Great Zhou. In the Great Zhou, the demons who abide by the laws are also the people of the Great Zhou. Although the demons are not as numerous as the common people, they can develop intelligence or take human form. They all have cultivation, and the power they produce is far greater than that of the common people. If the demons in the Great Zhou are united, they will condense the Emperor's chi faster, and your Majesty will be able to escape as soon as possible. Zhou Yi's eyes suddenly opened. She looked around and said, "Since you think it's right, then do it boldly. I will always be behind you, Morning Court." An official's spittle flew everywhere. Absurd, simply absurd. What does the life and death of the demons have to do with the court? The court is the court of the common people, not the court of the demons. If they even have to care about the matters of the demons, then how busy will the local officials be? How many cultivators make a living by killing demons? Won't the court become the enemy of those cultivators? A different voice said, "Lord Yan's words are wrong. In this way the demons will certainly hate the court much less. It will be beneficial in easing the conflict between humans and demons." I agree. Humans and demons are all living creatures. If the demons are willing to abide by the laws, then the Great Zhou may be able to accept them. Our Great Zhou's celestial empire must have the magnanimity of a celestial empire. Another official stood up and said, "Lord Yan's words make sense. The counties can't even manage their own matters. How can they have the time to care about the demons?" Another person agreed. "This is the biggest joke in the world. Our human court is making decisions for the demons. How will the demon kingdom view us? How will the Shin kingdom and the Yong kingdom view us? Our Great Zhou will become the joke of all the other countries. The court is protecting the demons. This is simply unprecedented." I object. I also object. Once this topic was raised, it caused a strong reaction in the court. Although a few officials agreed at the beginning, they were quickly drowned out by voices of opposition. There were even officials who stood up and questioned, "Just whose suggestion was it? Stand up and let everyone see." Li Mu slowly walked out and said, "It was me." As he walked out, the voices of discussion in the court gradually quieted down. Finally they completely disappeared. You could hear a pin drop. Although Li Mu often did not attend court for several months, no one dared to look down on him. Both the old and new factions combined had been defeated by Li Mu. The students of the academy had been arrogant for a while, but now they were as obedient as sheep. Even the Zhou clan and the Xiao clan, after their successive defeats, had to avoid the sharp edge, not daring to oppose Li Mu directly. The official who had just asked Li Mu to stand up stood in a daze. He was completely stupefied. In this instant, countless thoughts flashed through his mind. Was over? He did not expect that the person he had attacked was Li Mu. After court, he would definitely suffer the revenge of this powerful official of the Great Zhou. The beautiful concubine he had just married would probably not be able to sleep for more than a few nights. The new house that he had just lived in for a year would also become someone else's after it was confiscated. He would probably have to sleep in the cemetery with excellent feng shui that he had chosen for his old father in his hometown, Nanjun. A moment later, the official wiped away the cold sweat on his forehead and said seriously, "Lord Li's suggestion is truly wonderful. Not only can this move alleviate the conflict between humans and demons, it can also stabilize the various prefectures, and it can also subtly divide the demon kingdom. This official's respect for Lord Li is like a torrential river, endless and unending. It is also like an overflowing river, unable to be controlled once it starts flowing. With Lord Li in the imperial court, it is truly the blessing of the Great Zhou dynasty and the common people." Another official who had objected looked at this person with disdain. He strode out and said with righteous indignation, "Demon race, so what if they are demons? Demons are also born and raised by their parents. As long as they are in the Great Zhou, they are the people of the Great Zhou. I have long disliked those cultivators with evil intentions. Uniting the demon race can strengthen the national strength of the Great Zhou. I strongly recommend that the Department of Worship recruit some demon experts. The various yamens should also eliminate discrimination and fully utilize the role of demons. Using demons to control demons can greatly reduce the pressure on the local yamens to govern the areas under their jurisdiction. The Ministry of Revenue can register these demons as demon citizens. The demon citizens are also the people of the Great Zhou and are protected by the laws of the Great Zhou. They also have to bear the responsibility of protecting the country. At some point, the officials in the court no longer objected to this matter. Instead, they began to make plans for the implementation of this matter. After brainstorming and discussing for a while, everyone unexpectedly discovered that the benefits of uniting the demon race seemed to far outweigh the disadvantages. It could even create a new structure that had never been seen since the establishment of the Great Zhou. Chapter 458. Li Mu thought that this proposal would be opposed by many, but he did not expect the court officials to be so reasonable. The officials of the various departments spoke one after another about the plan to incorporate the demons in the Great Show. They also put forward many constructive suggestions, many of which even Li Mu himself did not think of. After the court, these suggestions could be sorted out and modified, and then directly promulgated. Of course, there were some officials who expressed their concerns. The conflict between humans and demons had been going on for a long time. It was not something that could be easily resolved by promulgating a law. The common people had a natural fear of demons. This law might cause panic among the common people, which was not conducive to the unity of the people's hearts. This matter was of great importance. After the Hall of Secretaries drafted the regulations, the Minxia province did not immediately agree. Instead, they first spread the news and observed the reactions of the common people in Luoyang. After the news of this case spread out of the palace, it immediately caused widespread discussion among the common people. To be more precise, it caused widespread concern among the common people. Humans and demons were different. In the eyes of most people, demons were powerful and cruel. Even when adults scared children, they would be captured by demons if they disobeyed. What did the imperial court mean by this? On the streets of Luoyang, a group of people gathered. What, there's such a thing? If the imperial court is so free, why are they protecting those demons? Demons are always causing trouble and harming the common people. The government is not protecting the common people, but them? I wonder who came up with this bad idea. Could he be a spy sent by the demons? The imperial court should really investigate him, an insider said. I heard it was Lord Li who suggested it. Everyone asked, which Lord Li? That person said, of course it's young Lord Li. There were many officials in the imperial court with the surname Li, but there was only one person who could be called Lord Li by the common people. The person who suspected that the official who made the suggestion was a spy for the demons was stunned. Then he slapped his mouth and cursed, damn it, how could I suspect Lord Li? Since Lord Li suggested it, he must have his reasons for it. Someone said, it's said that protecting the demons is to stop them from hating the imperial court. If the demons don't hate the imperial court, they naturally won't cause trouble and harm the common people. After everyone thought about it, they felt that what he said made sense. I see. Lord Li is really far-sighted, so Lord Li is still thinking for us, the common people. That's right. Do you think that Lord Li is the same as those fellows in the imperial court who do nothing? The people of Xianxia trusted Li Mu unconditionally. After figuring out the reason behind this, the people started to talk about it. Actually, demons aren't that scary. They'll be the same as us even if they turn into humans. Maybe we already have demons around us. The books say that snake demons' legs are the best at clinging to people. Actually, I've wanted to try it for a long time. I want to see how seductive a vixen is. I wonder if there's any way for my cat to become a spirit. The officials of the Minxia province mixed in with the crowd to listen in on the situation. One of them clicked his tongue and asked, let's be frank, I really want to see the legs of a snake demon. Another person said expectantly, I wonder if the imperial court allows officials to marry demons. To be honest, I want to marry a fox spirit. I saved a fox 2 years ago. Last month, it cultivated into a human form and came to me to repay my kindness. The taste of a fox spirit is really unforgettable. The person beside her was puzzled. Didn't you say that it was a male fox? That person said, I didn't say it was a female either. The two of them chatted for a while and realized that they had seriously strayed from the topic. They were ordered to listen in on the situation of the people. The Lord Attendant wanted to know what the people thought about this matter. However, after walking 2 streets, they didn't hear much criticism. Instead, many people were discussing whether the snake demon's legs were clinging to people or whether the fox spirit was seductive. This actually revealed a very important piece of information. The people had great trust in Li Mu. What was certain was that if the same proposal was proposed by them or other officials, they would definitely be scolded to death by the people. However, if it was proposed by Li Mu, the result was completely different. He had completely won the trust of the people. The two of them sighed as they returned to the secretariat and reported what they had seen and heard. The left attendant sighed and said, this kind of person is too scary. With his own strength, he hijacked the people's will. If he wholeheartedly serves the Great Zhou, it will be a blessing for the Great Zhou. If he has disloyalty, it will be a disaster for the Great Zhou. If the previous emperor was still alive, he would definitely not allow such a person to exist. The right attendant sighed and said, but the empress is not the previous emperor. Of all the officials in the court, she only has eyes for Li Mu. She leaves all the court matters to him. Ever since Li Mu returned to Luoyang, the Chang'e Palace no longer has a backlog of memorials, the left attendant said, but I have to say that this person is indeed a great talent in governing the country. After 2 dynasties of decline, the great Zhou was able to recover so quickly and even become stronger. Can almost be said that it is his work alone. The right attendant's eyes shone with a strange light. He said, at first glance, the plan to take in the demon clan was a waste of the court's energy. But after careful consideration, it is simply wonderful. If the demon clan in the Great Zhou can be used by the court, the local counties will become unprecedentedly strong and cohesive. For this, even if we have to pay some price, it is worth it, the left attendant said. Now I actually hope that Her Majesty can continue to sit on the throne. The Great Zhou has been reborn with great difficulty. If after another setback the other countries will become disloyal again and the Demon Kingdom and Ghost Realm will take advantage of the situation to invade, the fate of the Great Zhou for hundreds of years will come to an end. The right attendant had a doubtful expression and asked, what do you think Her Majesty is thinking? Until now, she has not revealed any information about who she wants to pass the throne to. I'm afraid that the Xiao clan and the Zhou clan are not sure. The left attendant pondered for a moment and muttered, do you think there is another possibility? The 2 of them looked at each other. Their minds were already connected. The following conversation was completely carried out through telepathy. The Li residence. The development of the matter was far smoother than Li Mu had imagined. Not only did the courtiers not show any overwhelming opposition, even though some of the commoners were panicking, they still believed in the court and Li Mu. This was due to the trust he had built up with them over the past 2 years. There was another reason that Li Mu hadn't thought of. Due to the popularity of strange stories from A Strange Story, many novel authors rushed to imitate the plot style of Strange Stories from A Strange Story. Thus, starting about a year ago, the story of a young man who had a fortuitous encounter and cultivated diligently, slaying demons and eliminating evils for the people, and finally becoming a powerhouse of a generation, was no longer popular with most readers. Men preferred the romance between human beings and demonic ghosts. Some of the works aimed at women were even more explicit and bold. Whether it was an unmarried girl or a married woman, they would more or less have 1 or 2 such books under their pillows or at the bottom of their dowry boxes. A snake demon's legs were the most clingy, and a fox demon's legs were the most seductive in bed. Jokes like these also came from these YY novels. It was true that fox demons were seductive. Xiao Bai would often inadvertently seduce Li Mu until he felt hot all over and had to use the clear heart technique to resist. As for whether a snake demon's legs were the most clingy, Li Mu didn't know. In any case, the Empress was quite clingy. Although he didn't live in Chang'e Palace anymore, the Empress treated this place as her home. When she was here, Li Mu had to carefully serve her. She lay on his chair, drank his tea, held his niece, and even let Li Mu massage her back and shoulders. Li Mu used to hope that he could replace Shangguan Li's position, and now he really did. In the past it was she who served the Empress and now it was Li Mu. There was a knock on the door. Li Mu removed his hand from the Empress's body and walked to the door. Just as he opened the door, a green figure pounced on him. The girl in the green dress hooked her arms around Li Mu's neck and hung herself on him. Her 2 slender legs were tightly wrapped around Li Mu's waist. She happily said, "Uncle, my sister and I are here to seek shelter from you." Li Mu sighed in his heart. A snake demon's legs were indeed clingy. Hu Jiuqing didn't lie to him. Chapter 459. It was true that the snake demon's legs were the most clingy. Li Mu spent a lot of effort to remove Bai Tingxin from his body. After 2 years of not seeing each other, the 2 sisters had grown even more beautiful. One was wearing a white dress, while the other was wearing a green dress. Their figures were also slightly taller as they stood at the entrance of the Li residence. Li Mu looked around and asked, "Where are your parents?" Bai Tingxin said angrily, "Humph, they were traveling around the continent. They thought we were a burden, so they sent us back to the North County to cultivate. Sister said she missed you and insisted on coming here to find you. I could only follow her." Bai Tingxin twisted her ear and said angrily, "Who was the one who made a fuss about coming to the fairies' capital? How dare you talk about me?" Li Mu said helplessly, all right. Come in first." This time the White Demon King and his wife did not come. Only the 2 sisters came. Li Mu was secretly worried for them. These 2 nieces were really daring. Snake demons and fox demons were the favorite of those heretical cultivation. Even 5th realm experts were often captured, let alone these 2 little demons who had just condensed their demon cores. They were lucky to have come here safely. Bai Tingxin walked into the courtyard first and asked, Are the ants at home? Li Mu said, No, they are at Mount Baiyun. Hee, that's good. Bai Tingxin was secretly delighted. She muttered softly. Then she was stunned and asked, They are? Li Mu did not explain too much. He only said, You have 2 ants now. Bai Tingxin looked at the other beautiful woman standing in the courtyard and said blankly, Is this 3rd ant? Li Mu said with a serious expression, Don't be rude. This is Her Majesty the Empress of the Great Zhou. Zhou Yi only glanced at Bai Tingxin indifferently. She was so scared that she hid behind Li Mu and looked at the Empress with frightened eyes. She grew up in the mountains and was like a little princess at home. She could get whatever she wanted. She did not feel anything about being called the Empress of the Great Zhou. She only vaguely felt that this beautiful woman was very powerful. She was so powerful that she could crush her with her little finger. Li Mu walked to the Empress and introduced, Your Majesty, these 2 are the daughters of my sworn brother. The wild demons do not know the rules. Please forgive them, Your Majesty. Wanwan and Xiaobai also ran over from the side and said happily, Sister White Snake, Sister Green Snake, you are here? Li Mu felt that the house was too quiet just now. Now it was so lively that it gave him a headache. Wanwan and Xiaobai were not talkative. Inxin used to be lively, but after condensing the Yao core, she gradually became a lady snake. Only Tingxin was crazy. Li Mu thought that she would restrain herself after condensing the Yao core. He did not expect that after her cultivation improved, she became more lively. Even Wanwan and Xiaobai were affected. However, there were benefits to being noisy. At least the house was more lively. Because of the sisters, Li Mu added a few more dishes. After dinner, Li Mu gave them a stack of banknotes. Wanwan and Xiaobai took them to the streets to sweep. Demons from remote places needed some time to adapt to Xin Du for the first time. When Li Mu was washing the dishes in the kitchen, the Empress stood in the courtyard and said, Your nieces are not ordinary snake demons. Li Mu explained while washing the dishes, Your Majesty, their father is from the snake race and their mother is from the dragon race. They have half of the dragon race's bloodline. Zhou Yi said, No wonder you don't hate the demon race. There are more demons in your family than humans. Li Mu explained awkwardly, Humans are divided into good and bad people. Demons are also divided into good and evil demons. They cannot be lumped together. Little Bai Wanwan had gone shopping with the Bai sisters. She probably wouldn't return until nightfall. The Empress rolled up her sleeves and brought Li Mu back to the palace. There were still some details to be discussed in the Imperial Secretariat regarding the incorporation of the demonic beasts. With the help of the officials, the general policy was formulated. After reading it, Li Mu found that there were no problems. He went to Chang'e Palace and continued to help the Empress read the memorials. After reading a few memorials, Li Mu saw the one from Jianghu County. After the case of the second-rank prince of Jianghu was exposed, his followers were either banished to the army or exiled. As for the second-rank prince of Jianghu, he was a member of the Shao royal family. If they wanted to determine his life or death, they would have to go through the procedures of the Ministry of Justice, the Ancestral Temple, and the 3 provinces. They would have to carefully examine the evidence of his crimes. Li Mu frowned when he flipped open the letter and read its contents. The memorial said that Jianghu County's king had committed suicide in prison. During this time, he had been imprisoned in Jianghu County's prison. 3 days ago, the jailer found him dead in his cell. The cause of death was the dissipation of his primordial spirit. After the investigation, the conclusion was that Jianghu County's king knew that he would die for his crimes. To avoid suffering, he committed suicide. Since he would die sooner or later, he would not waste the imperial court's resources by doing it himself. Li Mu put down the memorial and stopped paying attention to the matter. At the same time, Divine Capital's southern court, King Ping's residence. There were 7 princes in the Divine Capital. King Ping was the most senior among them. He was also the pillar of the royal family and the old party. In King Ping's study, Xiao Ziyu said slowly, The 3 provinces have all approved the proposal to incorporate the demons in the Great Zhou. Any demon that enters the Great Zhou will be protected by the laws of the Great Zhou. Killing demons is the same as slaughtering the citizens of the Great Zhou. The prefectures and the consecration department can't just sit by and watch. King Ping said calmly, I understand. You may leave. Xiao Ziyu cupped his fists and left. In the shadows of the study, a black shadow gradually formed and whispered, Master, I've dealt with Xiao Heng according to your instructions. King Ping snorted and said, You can't do anything right, but you're good at spoiling things. You almost ruined everything. The black shadow said slowly, If demons are going to become citizens of the Great Zhou, it won't be so easy to attack them in the future. We must stop the imperial court from pushing this. King Ping waved his hand and said, "Forget it. Let's not provoke that person. We've lost 3 years of fighting with the Zhou clan. Why don't we fight with him for 3 months? It's better not to provoke him. When he hits a wall, he'll give up." When Li Mu returned from the palace, Wan Wan and Xiao Bai had already returned. The sisters Yinxin and Tingxin were choosing their rooms. Li Mu asked, "Does Brother Bai know that you've come to the divine capital?" Bai Tingxin snorted and said, "He only has eyes for my mother. He can't be bothered with us." Li Mu shook his head and said, "No matter what, we still have to tell him." Bai Tingxin pouted. "If I don't, he'll get the other uncles to capture us." Li Mu said, "Be good. I'll tell him when the time comes." Bai Tingxin reluctantly took out a conch. After activating it, she said a few words to the conch and then handed it to Li Mu. Li Mu took the conch. Li Mu heard the White Demon King's apologetic voice, "Third brother, I'm really sorry. These 2 girls have troubled you. I'll get someone to bring them back in a few days." Li Mu smiled and said, "No need. If they're willing to stay here, then they can cultivate here. Staying here is beneficial to their cultivation." The White Demon King laughed and said, "Then I'll leave it to you. If they're disobedient, you can discipline them on my behalf. Especially Tingxin. Discipline her when you need to. Don't spoil her." After exchanging a few more words with the White Demon King, Li Mu returned the conch to Bai Tingxin. She hugged Li Mu's arm and shook it. She said obediently, "I'll definitely listen to you, uncle." Li Mu pulled his hand out of her embrace. It was indeed better for them to stay here than to cultivate in the north region. The last time they parted, Wan Wan's cultivation was still very low. Now she was the same as them. Xiao Bai had far surpassed them. He didn't dare to say too much, but it shouldn't be a problem for them to both enter the 5th realm after staying with Li Mu for a year. Moreover, the demon clan's heavenly book that Li Mu obtained from the demon emperor's cave abode happened to be useful. There was a complete cultivation method of the snake clan in it. Li Mu could also cultivate this cultivation method. However, he was a human after all. He could only cultivate to the 5th or 6th realm. Only a true snake clan member could unleash the power of the snake clan's cultivation method. Not long ago, when Li Mu pretended to be a snake demon and was undercover in the Thousand Fox City, Phantom Princess rewarded him with a 5th realm snake demon pill in order to improve his cultivation. He had been keeping it. Li Mu stretched out his hand and a jade bottle appeared in his hand. Bai Tingxin asked curiously, "What's this?" Li Mu said, "This is..." He had just said 2 words when he suddenly realized that there was only 1 demon pill, but his nieces had 2. Who should he give it to? Both of them were flesh and blood. As an elder, if he favored one and discriminated against the other would feel terrible. Li Mu thought for a moment and asked, "Look at this jade bottle. Isn't it beautiful?" Chapter 460. The jade bottle floating in Li Mu's hand was sparkling and translucent. It was indeed very beautiful. But what was even more beautiful was the thumb-sized golden demon core in the jade bottle. The jade bottle could not isolate the aura of the 5th realm snake demon core. The 2 sisters looked at the jade bottle in Li Mu's hand and swallowed their saliva at the same time. The green snake's reaction was even faster. She grabbed the jade bottle from Li Mu's hand and asked, "Uncle, is this for me?" What else could Li Mu say? He nodded and said, "This is a snake demon core that I accidentally obtained. Take it and refine it. It can improve your cultivation." "Thank you, uncle." Bai Tingxin's face revealed a bright smile. Li Mu once again felt the strength of her slender legs. Not only that, she also took the opportunity to kiss Li Mu's face. If Li Mu did not dodge quickly, she would have kissed Li Mu's mouth. Li Mu frowned and said, "No manners. In the future, don't do this. Looking at her blinking innocently, Li Mu couldn't say what he wanted to say next. After all, she was just a snake demon without much life experience. She was his niece. What bad intentions could she have? If he said too much, it would make Li Mu look like a dirty person. Li Mu waved his hand and said, "Okay, go back to your rooms and rest. I also need to rest." After Li Mu left, the 2 sisters went back to their rooms. Their rooms were in the same courtyard, one in the east and one in the west. Bai Yinxin returned to her room and sat by the table. She rested her chin on one hand and a smile appeared on her face. Suddenly there was movement at the window. A figure slipped in through the window. She glanced at her sister and said unhappily, "Why aren't you sleeping? What are you doing here?" Bai Tingxin put the jade bottle on the table and said, "This is for you." Bai Yinxin glanced at it and shook her head. You should refine it. Your cultivation is low. Bai Tingxin shook her head and said, my cultivation is low anyway. After refining it, I won't be able to advance much. Why don't you increase your cultivation to protect me? As for Mu, she kissed Bai Yinxin's face, then slipped to the window and said, I'm going back to sleep, sister. The next day when Li Mu woke up, Wan Wan and Xiao Bai had already prepared breakfast. After the meal, Li Mu called the two sisters to the courtyard. He stretched out his hand, and with a flash of white light, a light soft armor appeared on his hand. She handed the soft armor to Bai Yinxin and said, wear this immortal robe. Bai Yinxin said softly, thank you, uncle. Li Mu handed her a sword and said, take this sword as well. The sword he gave to White Snake was also given to him by Phantom Princess. This sword's grade was not low. It was once owned by a snake expert of Meizong's sect. Even the sword's body was in the shape of a snake, which was suitable for her. Yesterday the demon core was given to Green Snake, and these two magic treasures were given to White Snake. It showed that Li Mu was impartial and did not favor anyone. Seeing her sister's immortal robe and immortal sword, Bai Tingxin looked at Li Mu expectantly. However, Li Mu did not look at her at all. Li Mu continued to say to Bai Yinxin, come with me. I'll teach you a few more techniques of the demon race. Seeing Li Mu leave with her sister, Bai Tingxin stood in the courtyard and pouted. Tears were rolling in her eyes. The demon core was her sister's, the immortal robe was her sister's, and the magic treasures were her sister's. Even the techniques were only taught to her sister. She had nothing. How could he bully her like this? Boo-hoo, she had never been wronged like this since she was young. Her tears fell on the spot. She cried like a pear blossom in the rain. Li Mu heard the crying and walked back. He was extremely surprised and asked, what's wrong with you? Bai Tingxin wiped her tears with one hand and pointed at him with the other. She said sadly, you're biased. Li Mu felt even more wronged and asked, how am I biased? Bai Tingxin said, you gave her immortal robe, magic treasures and even taught her techniques. I don't have anything. Li Mu was stunned and said, didn't I give you the demon core? Bai Tingxin felt wronged and said, I've already given it to her. Li Mu still underestimated the relationship between the two sisters. It was not that he did not have good things, but the problem was the reasonable distribution. He did not want the two sisters to think that he was biased towards one of them. Li Mu said helplessly, then you come too. He gave the two sisters one immortal robe and one magic treasure each. Last time at Mount Baiyun the 6 sects were plundered. Lu Hanyin and Li Qin kept what they could use and gave the rest to Li Mu. His current wealth might not be as good as the Empress, but compared to some small sects, it was far more. The largest courtyard at the back of the Li residence was where Li Mu used to practice auxiliary divine arts. Here he could not practice powerful attacks such as thunder and sword techniques, but he could practice auxiliary techniques such as invisibility and transfiguration. Many times these auxiliary techniques could play a greater role. Li Mu walked to the lawn and said to Bai Yinxin, what kind of mental cultivation method are you cultivating now? Excluding external objects, the speed of cultivation depended on the cultivation method. Although the Qi refinement of Haotian Taoism was common, it was also a top cultivation method. It was just that Haotian Taoism did not hide it, and Buddhism also had its own sutras. In comparison, the demon race could not compare with humans in terms of cultivation. It was very rare for birds and beasts to have spiritual intelligence. They could only rely on their instincts to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and their cultivation speed was very slow. Although the two sisters were born with a golden spoon in their mouths and had cultivated mental cultivation methods since they were young, their cultivation method was not the most suitable for them. Bai Yinxin told Li Mu the cultivation method of the two sisters. Li Mu found that their cultivation was actually just ordinary Qi refinement. It seemed that the cultivation method of the snake race had been lost, or no one had comprehended it from the heavenly book. Li Mu looked at Bai Yinxin and said, sit down cross-legged. From today onwards, you will cultivate according to the method I taught you. Bai Yinxin did not ask anything and obediently sat down cross-legged. Under Li Mu's signal, she slowly stretched out her hands. Li Mu sat cross-legged in front of her and connected his palms with hers. He guided the mana in his body into hers and circulated it through a special path. The cultivation method of the snake race was very simple. There was only one way from the first realm to the 9th realm. It was far less complicated than the fox races. Each tale had its own cultivation method and even the heavenly book had its own page. Bai Yinxin circulated her mana according to the method Li Mu taught her. Just as Li Mu withdrew his hands, Bai Yinxin impatiently sat down cross-legged and said, "It's my turn, it's my turn." She casually lifted the hem of her skirt, revealing two smooth, jade-like calves. Li Mu pulled the hem of her skirt down and completely covered her body before his palms touched hers. Bai Yinxin took the opportunity to insert her fingers into Li Mu's fingers. The two palms connected and became 10 fingers interlocked. Li Mu glared at her and said, "Behave yourself." Bai Yinxin pouted and said, "Hold it tighter like this." Li Mu ignored her and closed his eyes. He channeled his mana and quickly circulated it through her body. He said, "Follow the path of my mana in your body and circulate it once." Bai Yinxin said embarrassedly, "Uncle, I didn't remember." "Do it again." Li Mu had no choice but to channel his mana into her body again and circulate it through her body. "I forgot again." "Do it again." "I remember less than half this time." "More than half. Just a little bit more." Helping others was a very taxing task. After a few times, Li Mu powerlessly laid on the grass. Sweat seeped out of his forehead as his chest heaved up and down. He said, I can't do it anymore." "Let's talk about it tomorrow." Bai Yinxin pulled him up and said, "One more time, one last time." Chapter 461. In the end, Li Mu was forced by the little green snake to do it again. Then he lay on the grass and did not want to move anymore. The White Demon King couple were rather content. They wandered the world and lived the life Li Mu wanted to live, but they gave their daughter to him. Li Mu not only had to take care of their food and clothing, he also had to worry about their cultivation. Fortunately, Bai Yinxin finally remembered this last time and began to cultivate according to the new Heart Sutra like her sister. The two sisters sat cross-legged on the grass with their eyes closed, but their faces gradually revealed a shocked expression. They could clearly feel that the surrounding spiritual chi of the world was surging into their bodies at an extremely fast speed. It was several times faster than their usual cultivation speed. This meant that their cultivation speed in the future would also increase by several times. This kind of Heart Sutra seemed to be tailor-made for the snake race. After circulating her mana for a cycle, Bai Yinxin opened her eyes and stared straight at Li Mu. She asked, "Uncle, are you a snake like us?" Other than the snake race, she could not think of anyone else who could create this kind of cultivation Heart Sutra. Li Mu knocked her head. "What are you talking about? Impudent." Bai Yinxin gently twisted her body and slid to Li Mu's side. She bit her lower lip and said softly, "I was wrong." Li Mu got up from the grass and said, "You two take your time cultivating. I still have things to do. If there's anything you don't understand, ask me." Before Bai Yinxin slid into his arms, Li Mu hurriedly left the courtyard. She used to be angry with T. After not seeing her for such a long time, her anger had gotten worse. Moreover, she was intentionally or unintentionally teasing him. Li Mu had to be on guard against her. Different from her sister, this green snake did not care about the things that humans did. What etiquette, what shame, what forbidden love, she probably did not have such awareness at all. Early the next morning, Li Mu arrived at the Jianghu Palace. The Secretariat had already drafted the memorial establishing the Great Zhou Demon Registry. Furthermore, it had been reviewed and approved by the sect. In the end, as long as the Empress Jade Seal was stamped, it could be handed over to the Secretariat for specific implementation. Inside the hall, Mr. Mei looked at Li Mu and asked, "What did you do yesterday? Why are you so pale and weak?" Li Mu sighed and said, "Don't mention it, the two snakes at home are too clingy. Yesterday my mana was drained by them and I almost couldn't get out of bed in the morning." Zhou Yi and Shangguan Li, who were reading, suddenly looked at Li Mu. Mr. Mei was both embarrassed and angry. He said, "Bastard, this is His Majesty's bedchamber. Don't say anything." Li Mu explained, "Yesterday I taught them a new cultivation method and helped them cultivate more than 10 times. My mana and energy were all exhausted. What were you thinking?" Mr. Mei was stunned. "So that's what happened?" Li Mu asked in return. "What did you think it was?" Mr. Mei said awkwardly, "I thought so too." On the side, Zhou Yi and Shangguan Li also retracted their gazes. Li Mu only just realized that although he was just stating facts, if someone's mind was filled with nonsense all day long, it was easy to create ambiguity. However, he did not expect that the Empress, Mr. Mei and Shangguan Li, these three people's bodies were purer than the other, but their minds were dirtier than the other. What were they thinking in their minds just now? They were all red in the face and ears. The Empress' neck was even covered with a light pink color. After this small episode, the atmosphere of the entire Jianghu Palace became awkward. The three people's eyes kept glancing at Li Mu. Li Mu felt uncomfortable all over. After reading a few memorials, he said to the Empress, "Your Majesty, I'm not feeling well today. I'll go back first." Zhou nodded and said, "Go ahead." As soon as Li Mu left, Mr. Mei complained, "He didn't say it clearly. How would I know what he meant? There's a new mistress in his house. I thought he kidnapped 2 snakes from somewhere." Shangwanli glanced at her and said, "There's nothing wrong with what he said. It's your mind that's not pure." Mr. Mei looked at her and asked, "Your mind is pure. If your mind is pure, why are you blushing?" Shangwanli was speechless for a moment. She explained, My face is already red. Besides, your Majesty is blushing too." Zhou stood up and said, "Chang'e Palace is a bit hot. I'll go take a walk in the Imperial Garden." After returning home, there was nothing to do. Li Mu was bored, so he checked on the cultivation of the girls. Wanwan didn't care about cultivation. She mainly focused on eating, playing, and cultivating. Xiao Bai wanted to become stronger and find the enemy who killed Granny to avenge her. She looked like she was eating and playing with Wanwan, but she was actually cultivating seriously in private. If she didn't take the initiative, no matter how much resources Li Mu provided her, she wouldn't have been able to reach the 5th level so quickly. Li Mu would remind them about their cultivation every few days. The new Bai sisters were the ones that Li Mu had to pay more attention to recently. They had changed their cultivation methods. At the beginning of their cultivation, they would definitely encounter many problems. In addition to the cultivation method, Li Mu also taught them a few powerful snake clan abhijna. Snakes were cold-blooded and were naturally good at hiding. At the same time, they were very sensitive to heat and smells. They were also natural tracking experts. In addition, the snake clan's poison techniques were something that even high-level cultivators would be wary of. Although the 2 sisters looked sweet, they were actually more poisonous than the other. In the natural world, the more beautiful an animal or plant was, the more likely it was to be poisonous. Li Mu didn't forget that Wu Bo was almost poisoned to death by Yinxin. If he was really poisoned, other than antidote pills, any Fulu talisman would be useless. As a human, Li Mu could learn about 50 to 60% of some demon clan abhijna. However, even if he was squeezed dry, he wouldn't be able to squeeze out a drop of poison. However, this didn't mean that Li Mu couldn't teach them. In terms of theoretical knowledge, he wasn't afraid of anyone. Li Mu was teaching them how to turn the poison into a mist and then condense it into a poison arrow to cause an area attack. Bai Yinxin learned quickly. In just an hour, she was already very proficient. Li Mu walked to Bai Tingxin and said, "It's your turn. Go all out and attack me with the spell I just taught you." Bai Tingxin shook her head and said, "But what if I hurt Uncle?" Li Mu glanced at her and said, "I won't blame you even if you hurt me. If you can hurt me, I can promise you one more thing." Bai Tingxin said excitedly, "You said it. Pinky swear." Li Mu stretched out his little finger and hooked it with her white finger. Bai Tingxin retreated to the side and spat out a cloud of poison mist from her mouth. Soon it surrounded Li Mu. In the poison mist, one couldn't see anything in front of them. Whoosh! An undetectable sound of wind breaking came from the poison mist. Li Mu slightly leaned his body and dodged a poison arrow. Whoosh! 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 In the poison mist, poison arrows were constantly shot from all directions. Li Mu tilted his head and lifted his feet to dodge the poison needles. He always locked onto a breath in the poison mist. At a certain moment, when several poison arrows were shot, Li Mu's figure flashed and disappeared from the spot. He appeared beside the breath and stretched out his hand to grab it. A long object was caught in Li Mu's hand. Then a trace of doubt appeared in Li Mu's eyes. Even if she revealed her true form, it wouldn't be so thin and hard. Li Mu withdrew his hand and found that he was holding the sword he gave Bai Tingxin. Her emerald green shirt was hanging on the sword. Then, a head quietly appeared beside his wrist and gently bit his wrist. Li Mu felt a sharp pain in his wrist. Then his whole body began to feel numb. His legs went soft and he fell into Bai Tingxin's arms. Bai Tingxin hugged him and said with a smile, "Uncle, I won." Li Mu never thought that he would be pecked in the eye by a wild goose all day long. He played with snakes all day long and finally got his wrist bitten by a snake. Bai Tingxin was smart enough to use the concealment technique he taught her to hide her breath. With the cover of the poison mist, she deceived Li Mu. Then, when he thought that victory was in his hands, she gave him the final blow. This time, Li Mu was indeed careless. On the one hand, he underestimated the enemy too much. Now, even if he was facing a powerhouse in Dongxian, as long as he hadn't been in Dongxian for many years or was half a step into the upper realm like the slovenly Taoist priest, he could fight. He didn't believe that he would fall in the hands of a little snake demon who had just condensed a monster core. On the other hand, she was Li Mu's niece. Li Mu's trust in her made him not treat her as a real enemy. Various reasons caused him to fail in front of the two sisters and lose face. Now he was still lying in by Tingxin's arms. Li Mu suppressed the snake venom with his magic power and stood up. Just as he was about to throw an antidote into his mouth, he was stopped by Tingxin. She grabbed Li Mu's wrist and said, "The antidote can't be removed completely. Let me help you." Li Mu asked, "How are you going to remove it?" Tingxin licked her red lips and a trace of shyness appeared in her eyes. She said, "My saliva can be removed. I'll feed you." Li Mu shook off her hand and said, "It's just snake venom. How can it stump me? I'll force it out myself." With that he strode to his room. Tingxin looked at her sister with dissatisfaction and said, "Tingxin, you're too much. How can you bite him? What? Are you heartbroken?" Tingxin rolled her eyes and said, "He asked me to do my best. Besides, I wanted to detoxify him but he didn't let me." "You're still talking." Tingxin retracted her head. Most of the time she was still afraid of her sister. Her voice was no longer as confident as before. She whispered, "He won't eat my saliva. I'll let him drink my blood, okay?" In the room, Li Mu sat cross-legged on the bed with a worried look on his face. He didn't know if it was because she had the bloodline of the dragon race, but the snake venom was so overbearing. Although it couldn't do anything to Li Mu had a hard time removing it. Even if he used an antidote, there would still be residual poison. It would take him at least a few days to remove it. There was a knock on the door. Tingxin said, "Uncle, I'm here to detoxify you. If you don't want to use your saliva, you can use something else." Li Mu had already said that. If he compromised now, his dignity as an elder would be gone. How could he discipline them in the future? He said faintly, "No need. I'll remove all the poison in 15 minutes at most. You can continue to cultivate." Tingxin said, "Oh," and left in disappointment. Li Mu got down from the bed. He knew the 4 heavenly books and knew more about the snake race than any snake in the world. How could he be helpless against the poison of a small green snake? A moment later. In the imperial garden of the palace. Li Mu looked at the empress awkwardly and said, "Your Majesty, I was bitten by a snake." Zhou Yi frowned and said, "The 2 snakes in your house?" Li Mu said, "She was careless. The snake venom is very overbearing. I can't remove it in a short time, so I came to your Majesty." Zhou Qiong was deep in thought. She was wondering under what circumstances Li Mu would be bitten by the snake demon at home. Where was he hurt? Was it his tongue or some other place? She looked at Li Mu and asked, "Where are you hurt?" Li Mu pulled up his sleeves, revealing 2 rows of small wounds on his wrists. Zhou Yi's face relaxed a little and said faintly, "Give me your hand." Li Mu reached out his hand. Zhou Yi held his hand. Li Mu felt a majestic mana invading his body. A few drops of white liquid flew out from the wound. At the same time, the discomfort in his body disappeared completely. After removing the snake venom from his body, Li Mu returned home quietly. Xiao Bai, Wanwan, and the sisters Yinxin and Tingxin were playing cards in the yard. Li Mu turned invisible and swaggered across the yard. Li Mu could use ordinary invisibility in front of them. With their cultivation they couldn't find him at all. Tingxin played a card, then looked at Wanwan and said, "Wanwan, it's your turn." "Oh." Wanwan came back to her senses and saw Tingxin's card. She pushed down her own card and said, "I won." Li Mu went through the wall and returned to the room. He tidied up his clothes, opened the door and walked back to the front yard. Tingxin had lost several times in a row and had long wanted to find an excuse to slip away. When she saw Li Mu walk out of the room, she immediately trotted over and looked around him. She said disappointedly, "You really solved it?" Li Mu glanced at her and asked, "You seem very disappointed?" Tingxin's gaze wandered and she smiled guiltily. "No, how could I?" She quickly looked at Li Mu again and asked, "You said that if I can beat you, you will agree to one of my conditions. Does it still count?" Li Mu nodded and said, "Of course it counts." Tingxin said, "Then I'm going to say it now." Li Mu was already prepared to lose a lot of money. He said, "Say it." Tingxin said, "Marry me." In the courtyard, Yinxin was speechless. Wanwan and Xiao Bai stood up nervously. Li Mu thought he heard wrong and asked again, "What did you say?" Tingxin said, "Marry me." Li Mu said, "This joke is not funny." Tingxin said with a serious face, "I'm not joking." Li Mu also became serious, "I'm your uncle. If you do this again, I'll tell your father." Tingxin was not worried at all and said, "Tell him." My father said that love should be free and should not care about the prejudice of the world. When he was with my mother, everyone was against it, but they still got together. Moreover, they have us. He often encourages us. We are demons, so we don't care about the things of humans. He doesn't care if you call him big brother or father-in-law. Like father, like daughter. Li Mu finally knew why Bai Tingxin's personality was like that. He could no longer persuade her from an ethical point of view. He thought about it and said, "But I already have a wife." Bai Tingxin pointed at Wanwan and Xiaobai, who were not far away, and said, "You still have them. This is not your excuse." Li Mu opened his mouth and finally looked at Bai Yinxin and said helplessly, "You have to control your sister." Chapter 462. Bai Yinxin walked over and said helplessly, "Tingxin, don't talk nonsense all day." Bai Tingxin was unconvinced. "I'm not talking nonsense. Dad said that if you like someone you have to say it out loud. Is it wrong to like someone?" Li Mu was extremely suspicious of what his big brother, White Demon King, had taught his daughter. If she could use half of this thought on cultivation, she would not be at her current cultivation level. Since the hard method did not work, Li Mu could only use the soft method. He looked at Green Snake and said earnestly, "Tingxin, when it comes to love, both parties have to love each other. It can't be forced." Bai Tingxin understood what he meant and asked, "You don't like me?" Li Mu nodded and said, "I like you because you're my niece, but I hope you can understand that this kind of like isn't between a man and a woman." Bai Tingxin was unconvinced. "Why don't you like me? Am I not beautiful enough?" Li Mu looked at Xiaobai. Bai Tingxin looked back and did not refute. Even if she was confident in her appearance, she could not go against her conscience and say that she was prettier than Xiaobai. She took a deep breath and asked again, "Am I not obedient enough?" Li Mu looked at Wanwan. Bai Tingxin lowered her head again and was silent for a long time. She still did not give up and asked, "Are my legs not long enough and not clingy enough? Don't you men like this?" Li Mu looked at Bai Yinxin. Among the 4 people in the yard, she was not as beautiful as Su Bai, not as obedient as Wanwan, and not as long as her sisters. Little Green Snake finally fell silent and returned to her room without a word. Not long after, Bai Yinxin walked in and sat down beside her. She sighed softly and said, "Don't mess around anymore." Bai Tingxin said, "I'm not messing around." Bai Yinxin looked at her and asked, "Do you really want to be your own aunt?" Bai Tingxin did not care at all. "What's wrong with that? If you like someone you have to say it out loud. This is what Dad taught me. Why don't I ask Dad to cut ties with him?" Bai Yinxin was stunned for a moment before she asked, "Is that okay?" Bai Tingxin smiled and said, "See, sister, you think so too, don't you?" Bai Yinxin immediately became serious. "Of course not," Bai Tingxin said. "Anyway, I want to. I'll tell Dad." She took out the spirit snail and looked at her sister, asking in confusion, "Why didn't you stop me?" Bai Yinxin snorted and said, "You have grown up and have your own thoughts. I can't control you all the time. Do whatever you want." Li Mu's room. Ever since Yin Xian and Ting Xian came, Li Mu didn't let Xiaobai and Wanwan sleep with him. In front of the younger generation he had to be more careful. He knew that he had always been soft-hearted, but being soft-hearted would only lead to deeper entanglements. So this time, he hardened his heart and clearly told that little green snake that he had no such thoughts towards her, and told her to give up as soon as possible. Although it was somewhat cruel, he had to do it. In order to prevent her from taking advantage of him, Li Mu had to avoid her for the next 2 days. In the morning he didn't eat breakfast at home. He went to Jianghu Palace early to have breakfast with the Empress. He ate 3 meals a day with the Empress. At night, he read memorials in Jianghu Palace and only returned home a moment before the palace gates closed. For the great Zhou he worked day and night, forgetting to eat and sleep. His diligence had already surpassed Emperor One. If he was the emperor, the future generations would definitely evaluate him as the master of the great Zhou's revival and the first wise ruler in the world. Unfortunately he wasn't. He worked so hard and his good reputation was all taken by the Empress. In any case, they were going to be neighbors in the future. As a family, Li Mu didn't care too much about these things. None of the vows he made to the Empress had been fulfilled. There was still a long way to go before he could retire. Although the tributes from the other countries temporarily intimidated them, it was only intimidating. It was impossible for them to directly bow down to the Great Zhou. The Ghost Realm and the Yao Kingdom were just as usual. As for capturing a dragon to be the Empress's mount, there was no sign of it. Li Mu sighed in his heart. This kind of thing couldn't be done one generation after another. The empress wanted him to work for a lifetime. Today he stayed at Chang'e Palace until very late and had dinner with the empress. Zhou Yi looked at Li Mu with surprise and asked, "Why have you become so diligent these days?" Li Mu said, "The great Zhou is currently plagued by internal and external troubles. The people's faith has stagnated. The Yao Kingdom and the Ghost Realm are eyeing us covetously. The southern countries are also waiting to laugh at us. This subject is deeply worried." Zhou Yi said indifferently, "Tell the truth." As expected, he couldn't fool the empress. Li Mu could tell the truth. The reason he stayed at Chang'e Palace for so long was that there was a snake at home that wanted to eat him. Li Mu sighed and said, "This big brother of mine has really spoiled his daughter." "How old is she?" "She says that love is free and shouldn't care about the prejudice of the world." "Does she know what love is?" Zhou Yi thought for a moment and said, "I think that what she said is quite reasonable." Li Mu didn't show anything on his face, but he was already mocking the empress in his heart. She only had an arranged marriage in name. What the hell did she know about love? Zhou Yi's face darkened. "What did you say?" Li Mu looked up and said blankly, "This subject didn't say anything?" Zhou Yi said, "You said it in your heart." Li Mu said firmly, "This subject didn't." No matter how powerful the empress was, she couldn't read minds. Putting aside the fact that she was only at the 7th level, she couldn't even do that at the 9th level. As long as he refused to admit it, what could she do to him? Zhou Yi couldn't do anything to Li Mu since she didn't have anything to use against him. She asked, "Then tell me, what is love?" Li Mu thought for a moment and said, "There will never be an answer to this question. Everyone has their own answer. However, when a person wants to be with another person at all times, to be happy when together, to feel sad when apart, and to feel happy just by seeing her, this should be love." Zhou Yi was stunned. Then she asked, "Isn't this possessiveness?" Li Mu said slowly, "Possessiveness is human nature. Friends will also have it. However, possessiveness and possessiveness are not the same. Whether it is the possessiveness of love or some other kind of possessiveness, you have to ask your own heart." Under Li Si's influence, Li Mu felt that he also had the demeanor of a master of love. The empress fell into deep thought after hearing his words. This was normal. For a woman who had never experienced love, love was indeed something difficult to understand. After thinking for a while, the empress suddenly looked at Li Mu and asked, "So, you and Lu Hanyan, Li Qing Wanwan and Xiao Bai all have feelings for each other?" This question really stumped Li Mu. If he said that it was all love, it would be an insult to love. Love was loyal. Liang Shambua and Zhu Yingtai, White Snake and Su Xian, those who were truly unswerving and unswerving were true love. Li Mu was at most a lecher. As expected, the person who understood him the most was still Hu Jiao. He sighed and said to the empress, "This subject is just a lecher." Zhou Yi snorted softly and said, "Your understanding of yourself is quite accurate. It was important to know one's own limits." Li Mu admitted that he was a vulgar person who had not broken away from vulgar interests. Since he had admitted it himself, the empress could not stand on the moral high ground and criticize him. Zhou Yi continued to mock, "If you switched places with me, I'm afraid that the harem would be full, right?" Li Mu waved his hand and said modestly, "It's not that bad, it's not that bad." In order to choose concubines, the former emperor had expanded the harem once. There were 72 concubines in 3 palaces and 6 courtyards. However, he only had children with the empress and the noble consort. Although Li Mu was also a lecher, he would not only care about physical pleasure when there was no emotional foundation. Until now, his body only belonged to Lu Hanyan. Zhou Yi asked again, "Don't tell me you're interested in those 2 nieces again?" Li Mu looked at the empress and said in disbelief, "Am I such a person in your majesty's eyes?" Zhou Yi waved her hand and said, "I'm just asking out of curiosity." Li Mu said firmly, "Although I'm lecherous, I also have principles. I won't have any thoughts about my nieces. What's the difference between that and a beast?" Today he had talked a little too deeply with the empress. Seeing that the palace doors were about to close, Li Mu stood up and said, "It's getting late. I'll go back first." Zhou Yi said casually, "It's getting late. Why don't you stay in Chang'e Palace tonight? You can read a few more memorials." Li Mu shook his head and said, No, I'll come back tomorrow." These past few days he had been sick of reading memorials. Now he did not want to read any more. Zhou Yi waved her hand disappointedly and said, "Go, go." Seeing Li Mu leave Chang'e Palace, Zhou Yi returned to her bedroom and sat in front of her dressing table. She inadvertently saw herself in the mirror and was slightly stunned. The woman in the mirror was naturally very beautiful. However, no matter how beautiful she was, it could not hide the disappointment on her face. She began to think about why she was disappointed. It seemed to be because Li Mu had left. However, she had spent at least 16 hours with him today. During these 16 hours, the furthest they had been apart was no more than 10 steps. Why would she be disappointed when Li Mu left? Could it be that she wanted Li Mu to be with her 24 hours a day eating and sleeping? Mei Wei told her that this was just normal possessiveness. However, Li Mu told her that this was love. Zhou Qiong's expression suddenly became one of bewilderment. She did not know who she should listen to. The Empress was somewhat abnormal these past 2 days. While Li Mu was reading memorials, she did not read novels. She leaned on the dragon throne alone, thinking about something. However, it was normal for women to have more thoughts. Li Mu did not take it to heart. He had encountered difficulties in the matter of incorporating the demons of the Great Zhou. After the palace secretariat had decided on the policy and approved it, the palace secretariat immediately sent it to the various counties. These past few days, the various counties had successively responded. Contrary to Li Mu's expectations, only a few out of the 36 counties of the Great Zhou responded to the policy with a small number of demons. This policy was completely beneficial and harmless to the weak demons in various places. After becoming the demons of the Great Zhou, they did not need to bear any responsibility. They would remain as they were in the past. The only difference was that the Great Zhou court had become their backing. In the future, regardless of whether it was righteous or evil path cultivators or powerful demons that threatened their lives, the local authorities would not sit idly by. They would be treated as true citizens of the Great Zhou. Even so, not many demons were willing. Li Mu guessed that it was probably because they did not trust the court at all. This was not surprising. Within the borders of the Great Zhou, the demons were in an awkward situation. Although they were all native demons of the Great Zhou, and the Great Zhou was their hometown, the court was the court of the human race. On this land, humans could wantonly slaughter them. However, if they dared to slaughter humans, only death would await them. This situation had persisted for tens of thousands of years. From the Great Zhou to the previous dynasty, it had been like this for generations. The conflict between the demons and humans was engraved in their genes. Li Mu put down the reports from the various counties. After thinking for a while, he stood up and said, "Your Majesty, I will go out to investigate. I will be back in 2 or 3 days at most." Zhou Yi said absent-mindedly, "Be careful." After Li Mu left, outside the hall, Mr. Mei stuck his head out to take a look. He asked Shangguanli, "Ali, did you notice that something is not right with His Majesty these past 2 days?" Shangguanli asked, "What's wrong?" Mr. Mei said, "His Majesty has become less talkative and smiles less. He is often in a daze by himself. I don't know what he is thinking about." Shangguanli thought for a while and said, "Maybe His Majesty is worried because the demons are not progressing well." Mr. Mei did not take her answer to heart. Ever since Li Mu was born, His Majesty had never cared about these things. Big and small matters, it was always Li Mu who took care of them. "Mei Wei, Ali, come in." The Empress's voice came from inside the hall. Mr. Mei walked in, bowed and asked, "Your Majesty, what are your orders?" Zhou Yi looked at her and asked, "Mei Wei, tell me, what is love?" Mr. Mei was stunned for a moment. Then a complicated expression appeared on his face. He said, "Your Majesty, if I knew what love was, I would not be alone now." Zhou Yi reacted and said, "Ali, you." It was only then that she realized that the other 3 women in the hall, including her, were completely clueless about this matter. According to Li Mu, the green snake seemed to know a lot about love. Zhou Yi stood up and said, "Let's go. Take 2 boxes of pastries from the imperial kitchen and go to the Li mansion. I haven't seen Xiao Bai and Wan Wan for a few days." Central County? There were 36 counties in the Great Zhou. Central County was located in the center of the country. It was where the divine capital was located. However, the development of Central County was not as good as the other 36 counties. The entire Central County had to provide convenience for the divine capital. All resources were provided to the divine capital. This made it impossible for Central County to become prosperous. The people were not too poor, but they barely had enough to eat and wear. The demons in Central County had a relatively miserable life. The people were not rich. They had no livestock to steal, and they did not dare to do so. It was too close to the divine capital and there were too many cultivators. No demons dared to cause trouble here. Instead, they were worried that the cultivators would steal their souls. They longed to go to the demon nation. However, as local demons of the Great Zhou who grew up here, they were already familiar with this place. No one wanted to and no one dared to leave. With their cultivation, it was very likely that they would die on the way to the demon nation before reaching it. In a mountain somewhere in Central County, a dozen figures sat cross-legged in an open space filled with fallen leaves. All the demons who had taken human form within 100 miles were gathered here. These demons usually cultivated in their own hidden abodes. Other than those who were close to them, they rarely gathered. This was the first time they had gathered together. Not long ago, the Great Zhou court announced a piece of news. From today onwards, any demon who cultivated in the Great Zhou could apply to become a demon citizen of the Great Zhou. After reporting to the government and becoming a demon citizen, they could still cultivate in their original abodes. Furthermore, they did not have to worry about being devoured by stronger demons or being hunted down by human cultivators. As long as they became a demon citizen of the Great Zhou, the court would protect them as if they were ordinary citizens. As monsters, their greatest danger was their more powerful brethren and human cultivators. If their safety could be guaranteed, they could cultivate in peace. To them, this was a great thing. It was so good that they felt it was unreal. Among the demons, a tiger demon with 3 horizontal lines on its forehead said in a deep voice, "What do you all think about this?" A leopard demon said, "If this is true, then it's great. We don't have to worry about those human cultivators anymore. We don't have to hide anymore. We can cultivate openly in the mountains." Idiot! Another wolf demon's face darkened. He gritted his teeth and said, "This is a conspiracy of the humans. Humans are cruel and cunning. Why would they be so nice to demons for no reason? They must want to catch us all in one fell swoop. Have you forgotten how your parents died?" The leopard demon's face was filled with hatred. He gritted his teeth and said, "It's those damned human cultivators." Following that, the other demons also spoke. "Brother Wolf is right. Humans are the most cruel and cunning. This must be their conspiracy. They want to lure us out and kill us as easily as blowing off dust. The goal of the human court is too obvious. Who would be stupid enough to believe humans? Everyone ignore it. Whoever goes will be courting death." In the sky above the demons, Li Mu merged with the canopy. He sighed inwardly. Changing the demons' understanding of humans was not something that could be done overnight. After returning to the divine capital, Li Mu had already thought of the next step of the plan. To make these demons believe in the court, he had to show them the court's sincerity. Li Mu needed the cooperation of some demons to set an example for the other demons. There was no one more suitable than Brother White's subordinates. Li Mu walked into the Li residence and saw Bai Tingxin, Wan Wan, and Xiao Bai chatting and laughing around the Empress. He walked in front of Bai Yinxin and said, "Yinxin, can you help me contact your father? I have something important to talk to him about." Bai Yinxin took out a spirit snail and imbued it with magic power. After saying a few words, she handed it to Li Mu. Li Mu greeted him briefly and then went straight to the point to tell him about it. The White Demon King said straightforwardly, "You can do as you see fit. You can bring Yinxin and Tingxin along. They will arrange it for you." Li Mu smiled and said, "Thank you, Brother White." The White Demon King said, "We're family. It's my duty." Li Mu said a few more words of courtesy before saying, "Then Brother White, I'll take Yinxin back tomorrow." The White Demon King said, "Wait a moment." Li Mu asked, "Is there anything else?" The White Demon King said, "I heard from Tingxin that you're now a minister of the Great Zhou court and a favorite of the Great Zhou Empress. You have a very high status and identity. When I became sworn brothers with you back then, I didn't expect you to have this day." Li Mu smiled and said, "This won't affect our relationship as brothers." The White Demon King said, "No, no, no. With your status and identity, how can you become sworn brothers with a demon? How will others look at you? From now on, don't call me brother anymore. I don't have a brother like you, but our relationship is still there. I hope you don't think too much." Li Mu was stunned and said, "Brother White, this?" The White Demon King smiled and said, "I'm doing this for your own good. Don't call me Brother White anymore. That's all. I still have other things to do. I'll take my leave." Li Mu held the snail that no longer made any sound and was at a loss. At the same time, thousands of miles away in the depths of the Eastern Sea, in a crystal palace. On a huge clam bed, a woman with 2 horns on her head rolled her eyes at the White Demon King and said angrily, "You're spoiling your daughter." The White Demon King did not care at all and said, "Back then your father did everything he could to stop us. It's not like you don't know how difficult it was for us. I won't let my daughter suffer like this." He smiled at the woman under him and said, "You just have to look for me at this time. It's only been 4 hours. Come, let's continue." As soon as he finished speaking, the open clam shell slowly closed. Divine Capital, Li Residence. Li Mu returned the spirit snail to Bai Xin and did not come back to his senses for a long time. Everything was fine. What was he trying to do now? Bai Xin skipped over and said happily, "Uncle, you're back." When she ran to Li Mu, she pretended to be enlightened. "I almost forgot. Last time, my father said that he wanted to cut ties with you. I don't have to call you uncle anymore. What should I call you in the future? Benefactor, young master, or brother?" Chapter 463. Li Mu still could not understand the demonic beast's way of doing things. He had 2 nieces for no reason and then they were gone for no reason. The problem was that Li Mu could not ignore them. The only change in this matter was that there was no longer a seniority barrier between him and Yinxin and Tingxin. Li Mu was speechless for a long time. Was there a father like this? He ignored the smug Bai Tingxin and said to the Empress, "Your Majesty, I need to go back to the North County to arrange some things and gain the trust of the demonic beasts as soon as possible so that they will cooperate with the Imperial Court's policies." Zhou nodded and said, "Come back early. I will try my best." Li Mu responded to the Empress and said to Bai Yinxin, "Yinxin, I need you to go back to the North County with me and discuss something with your other uncles." Bai Yinxin did not hesitate and nodded, "Okay." Bai Tingxin immediately said, "I will go too." Li Mu flatly refused, "One of you is enough." When he was still her elder, this little snake was already lawless. Now that he did not even have the protection of this relationship, she would definitely want a yard after taking an inch. Bai Tingxin looked at Li Mu and said unconvinced, "Then why do you want my sister to go with you? Do you have other thoughts about my sister?" In order to prove his innocence, Li Mu said, "It's the same no matter who goes. How about this, I will choose whoever I choose. Then you have nothing to say, right?" Bai Tingxin said, "Then you have to be fair." Li Mu nodded and said, "Don't worry, it will be absolutely fair." He stretched out his finger and pointed at the 2 sisters, "I will choose whoever the little rooster chooses." When the last word was said, his finger pointed at Bai Tingxin. Disappointment appeared in Bai Yinxin's eyes, while a victorious smile appeared on Bai Tingxin's face. Li Mu thought for a while, looked at the little green snake and said, "You are eliminated. Yinxin, let's go." Beside the stone table in the courtyard of the Li residence, Bai Tingxin was hugging a puppet snake that she had made herself. She was slapping its tail and scolding, "Humph, I told you not to bring me along. I'll beat you to death, I'll beat you to death." Wan sat on the swing and occasionally glanced at Bai Tingxin's direction with a worried expression. There was no fox spirit but there were 2 snakes. The task given to her by Miss seemed to be getting harder and harder to complete. Xiao Bai sat next to her and was also worried. In the past, she only had to worry about whether other vixens would approach her benefactor. Now, other than vixens, even beautiful snakes had appeared. She heard from Sister Xan that men liked women with long legs. Her legs were not as long as theirs. Zhou was still in the Li mansion. She walked to Bai Tingxin and sat down opposite her. She asked, "You like Li Mu?" Bai Tingxin nodded and raised her head to look at the Empress. Suddenly, she seemed to have realized something and asked expectantly, "Empress Sis, can you issue an imperial edict to marry me to him? He definitely won't dare to disobey Empress Sis's imperial edict." Zhou said faintly, "I can't." Bai Tingxin was disappointed. "Why?" Zhou said, "You can't force a melon to be sweet. Feelings can't be forced." Bai Tingxin said firmly, "I want to force it." Zhou asked, "He doesn't like you. What's the use of forcing it?" Bai Tingxin did not seem to mind at all. "He just hasn't realized how good I am yet. I believe that he will find out sooner or later. Love at first sight is just a matter of face. Only love that grows over time is true love." For some reason, Zhou felt that the little green snake in front of her, although she was much younger than her and her words were very willful, made sense. She couldn't help but want to hear more from her and learn more. She asked, "Did you fall in love with Li Mu at first sight?" Bai Tingxin curled her lips and said, "Of course not. Am I such a superficial snake? When we first met, we even fought. He even injured me. Later on, I slowly realized that he was good-looking, knew how to cook, had a gentle temper, and even saved me and my sister's life. At that time, I told myself that I, Bai Tingxin, have set my mind on him for the rest of my life." Zhou thought for a while and asked, "Have you ever thought that one of you is a human and the other is a demon?" Bai Tingxin was unconvinced. "So what if he's a demon?" Xiao Bai is a demon too. In the book he wrote, "Other than demons there are also ghosts. Love doesn't differentiate race, identity or status." This is what he told us. Zhou was puzzled and asked, Then you don't mind that he already has a wife, Wanwan and Xiao Bai. Bai Tingxin sighed and said, what can I do even if I mind? I also want to monopolize him, but I came too late. Empress Sis, if you have someone you like very very much, you will understand how I feel. Zhou Yi shook her head, what a joke. How can I have? Bai Tingxin said regretfully, that's too bad. Sister Empress, you'll never know what it feels like to like someone. You'll always think about being with him, wanting to possess him, wanting him to only be with you. Zhou Yi clutched her chest and felt that her breathing began to become a little irregular. She was shocked. She didn't know why, but her inner demon was beginning to stir again. At this time, Bai Tingxin snorted and slapped the snake again. She said angrily, I like him so much, but he actually likes my sister more. He didn't even bring me back to Beijun. I'll beat you to death. In the sky above Zhongjuan, a flying boat sped past. At a certain height below the 9 heavens astral wind layer, the atmosphere was relatively thin and the air was very stable. The flying boat sped past without any bumps. Li Mu stood at the bow of the boat and looked at Nexin, who was sitting cross-legged in the boat and cultivating seriously. He couldn't help but sigh at his decision. If he had brought another snake on this trip to Beijun, he wouldn't have been able to have a peaceful journey. Li Mu sized her up and thought of her appearance 2 years ago. She didn't seem to be much better than Tingxin. However, a woman changed 18 times between childhood and womanhood. Not only did she become more and more beautiful, even her personality had become so likable. He didn't know when the other snake would grow up. On the way, Li Mu had already asked Nexin. Her family had a very high status in Beijun's demon world. In the Great Zhou there were very few demons that exceeded the 5th realm. The White Demon King's strength was the strongest among the demons in Beijun. In the entire Beijun, most of the demon experts such as the Green Bull Demon, the Tiger King, the Rat King and others were working under him. As for the other demons, even if they weren't under him, the Green Bull Demon, the Tiger King and the other demons had a say. A day later, in a mountain somewhere in Beijun, the Tiger King came forward with a smile and said, Brother Li, long time no see. I heard that you've become a high-ranking official in the imperial court. I haven't congratulated you yet. You must stay today. Let's drink a few jars of his. Bai Yinxin walked forward and said, Uncle Hu, there's no rush to drink. Call the other uncles over first. We came back this time because we have something important to discuss with you. The demons under the White Demon King were scattered in the 13 counties in Beijun. Other than the Rat King and the Green Bull Demon who were closer, the rest would only arrive tomorrow. However, these 3 demons were the strongest. Even the White Demon King called them brothers. Li Mu naturally couldn't order them directly. After the 3 demons gathered, Li Mu asked, Brothers, have you heard that the imperial court wants to register the demons in the Great Zhou? The Green Bull Demon nodded and said, I've heard, but I don't know if it's true or not. We're still waiting. The Tiger King said, it's most likely fake. The human imperial court isn't so kind. Even if they don't attack us when they fight with the Demon Kingdom and Ghost Realm, they will use us as cannon fodder. This must be a vicious plan that someone came up with. Li Mu said in shame, to be honest, I was the one who suggested this. The Green Bull Demon's eyes lit up. He suddenly looked at Li Mu and asked, Brother Li, are you serious? Li Mu nodded and said, in the Great Zhou, a large part of the reason for the conflict between the demons and humans is that the imperial court's laws are unfair. The demons suffer under these unfair laws. I want to ease the conflict between the 2 races, so I pushed this matter forward. However, the hatred between the demons and humans is too deep. Very few demons are willing to trust the imperial court, so I asked for your help. The Green Bull Demon said, if the imperial court is sincere, then this is an unprecedented good for the demons. We believe in Brother Li, but we don't know if we can trust the imperial court. Li Mu thought for a moment and said, I can't promise the future, but I can promise you that as long as I'm in the imperial court, the demons of the Great Zhou will be protected by the imperial court. No matter who it is, whoever dares to hurt or kill the demons will be punished according to the laws of the Great Zhou. Li Mu could only guarantee this much. As long as he was in the imperial court, he could guarantee that the demons would enjoy the rightful rights. However, after he left the imperial court, he could not guarantee anything. However, this matter was beneficial to the imperial court in the first place, and they would not mess up this matter themselves. Even if the worst happened and the demonic folk rose up in revolt, and the Great Zhou Empire fell into chaos once more, that would be the bitter fruit that they had planted themselves, and would have nothing to do with Li Mu and the Empress. At that time they still did not know where to grow vegetables and flowers. The Green Bull demon smiled and said, "Brother Li's words are enough. Don't worry. Let's not talk about other things. You can leave the matter of the North County demons to us." Li Mu and the demons talked until very late. Only then did they return to their room to rest. Bai Yinxin led him into a room and said, "This was originally Tingxin's room. She didn't come back. Brother Li can sleep here tonight." She looked around and found that the room was in a mess. The quilt on the bed was also rolled up into a ball. There was a snake-shaped pillow with its tail drooping on the ground. The room was so messy that even she felt a little embarrassed. She hurried forward and tidied up as she said, "It's a little messy here. Brother Li, you can go out first. You can come in after I tidy up." Li Mu said, "I'll help you tidy up." Outside the room, the Tiger King looked inside in surprise. He wondered, isn't Brother Li the Demon King's sworn brother? Why is Tingxin calling him brother? The seniority is messed up. Could it be that Brother Li has cut off all ties with him? The Green Bull demon patted him on the shoulder and said, "What does this have to do with you? Calling him brother is not as close as calling him uncle. Let's go. Don't stand here. Go do your own things." The Tiger King looked puzzled. He muttered, "How can brother be closer than uncle? Uncle is clearly closer." Lying on the bed made by Tingxin and sleeping under the quilt made by Tingxin, Li Mu quickly fell asleep. A few days ago he was tormented by the two sisters. His physical strength was not small. His overdrawn body had not fully recovered. Because he had to deal with memorials for a long time every day, his energy was greatly depleted. He slept until late in the morning. When he woke up, Li Mu's physical and mental exhaustion had been swept away. When his body and mind were completely relaxed, he even had a dream. It was an extremely erotic dream. He had been separated from Lu Hanyan for a few months, and he had also been abstinent for a few months. For a newlywed who had tasted the forbidden fruit for the first time, it was a very difficult few months. Li Mu admitted that he was a lustful person, but even a lustful person had a bottom line. However, things like dreaming were not something that could be controlled by his subjective consciousness. Li Mu smelled the fragrance on the quilt that belonged to Bai Tingxin and swore that he would not sleep here tonight. Recalling the contents of the dream, he felt a little ashamed. He felt sorry for calling brother Bai countless times. Bai Yinxin had already woken up. She helped Li Mu bring his toiletries. Li Mu walked out of bed and said, "Thank you, Yinxin. Leave it there. I'll do it myself." Bai Yinxin still helped him wet the towel. After wringing it dry, she handed it to him. In fact, cultivators had their own supernatural powers to avoid dust. However, most of the time they still maintained the habits of ordinary people. This could make them feel that they were still human at all times, reducing the possibility of inner demons during the cultivation process. After washing up, Li Mu walked out of the room. The demons under the White Demon King had received the summons and had rushed over overnight. After hearing the Green Bull Demon and the Tiger King explain the purpose of gathering them, some of the demons were overjoyed, while others expressed their worries. Could this be a conspiracy of the imperial court? Why would they do something that is only beneficial to the demons for no reason? This is a matter of great importance. It's better to be careful. The demons' guard against humans was engraved in their bones, blood, and genes. It was impossible to convince them with just a few words. Fortunately, they did not completely refuse because of the White Demon King. In order to dispel their concerns, Li Mu made some concessions. The demons of the North County did not need to go to the various government offices to register. He would transfer a few officials from the county office to help them register their demons here. This could dispel some of their concerns. Many demons believed that the entire matter was a conspiracy of the imperial court. The day they went to the government office to register their names would be the day they died. In addition, the demons of the Great Zhou did not need to listen to the orders of the local government. After the demons were registered, they would establish a demon division that specialized in dealing with demons. There were demon officials in the demon division who were local powerful demons. They could receive a salary from the imperial court and command the demons of a county. Although this would increase the expenses of the national treasury, after Li Mu reformed the consecration department, the national treasury had a large amount of expenses left. It was more than enough to pay the salaries of the demon officials of the demon division. The demons of the various counties, regardless of race, were forbidden from killing each other. Once discovered, the demon division would directly capture them. After reporting to the imperial court, they would be dealt with according to the laws of the Great Zhou. If a cultivator harmed or killed a demon, the demon division could also capture them and hand them over to the imperial court. In addition, demons with a certain level of strength could complete missions issued by the various government offices in exchange for spiritual jades, dharma treasures, fulu, pills, and other cultivation resources. When they heard about the benefits of being registered as a demon, the demons of the North County were in an uproar. Being registered as a demon in the Great Zhou seemed to only have benefits for them. There were no disadvantages at all. Weak demons not only had difficulty cultivating, but they also had to worry about being devoured by powerful demons at all times. They usually hid and did not dare to reveal any demon chi. After being registered as a demon, the weak rabbit demons, fox demons, and so on could also appear openly in front of the tiger demons, wolf demons, bear demons, and other natural enemies. If they dared to touch a single hair of theirs, they would be punished by the demon division in the imperial court. Not only was the safety of the small demons guaranteed, but the powerful demons also heaved a sigh of relief. Their strength was only relative. Compared to the sharpness of dharma treasures, the power of supernatural powers, and the mysterious cultivators of fulu, they were also absolute weaklings. Usually they only dared to hide in the depths of the mountains and forests and did not dare to easily appear in human cities. Even so, they still had to worry about human cultivators coming to their door, killing them, and taking their souls and demon cores to cultivate. With the demon registration, everything was different. Even demons had a strong sense of belonging to the land under their feet. If they could have a powerful backer to support them, who would be willing to be a weak mountain spirit with no one to rely on. From now on, their identities were no longer mountain demons, but the demons of the Great Zhou. Anyone who wanted to harm them had to consider carefully whether they could afford to offend the Great Zhou court. The White Demon King was very prestigious in the hearts of the demons of the North County. After the news spread, the demons of the North County began to rush here, afraid that they would miss this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity if they were too late. Li Mu opened his heavenly eye and saw the large and small demon auras in the mountains. He was gratified. As expected, the demons did not trust the imperial court, but they trusted the demons. This time the White Demon King had helped him greatly. It was not in vain that he had spent so much effort on his 2 daughters. It was late at night. Li Mu was still thinking about all kinds of possible changes when Bai Yinxi knocked on the door and walked in with a bowl of ginseng soup. She said, "Brother Li, you've been busy all day. Drink this bowl of ginseng soup and rest early." "Thank you, Yinxi." Li Mu took the bowl and found that the soup in the bowl was neither cold nor hot. He drank a few mouthfuls and then asked, "Yinxin, are there any other empty rooms here?" Bai Yinxin asked, "What's wrong? Is Brother Li not comfortable sleeping here?" Li Mu nodded and said, "I'm not used to sleeping in Tingxin's room." Bai Yinxin thought for a moment and said, "Then I'll sleep here. You can sleep in my room next door." After drinking the ginseng soup, she brought Li Mu to her room. Although the 2 sisters were born from the same parents, their personalities were completely different. Their rooms were also completely different. The younger sister's room was as messy as a snake's nest, while the elder sister's room was clean and tidy. It gave people a very comfortable feeling. The only thing in common between the 2 rooms was that the quilts were very fragrant. Li Mu lay on the bed and fell asleep amidst a faint fragrance. The next day he still didn't wake up until late in the morning. Li Mu sat on the bed and recalled the dream last night. After being stunned for a long time, he slapped himself and said angrily, "I'm not human." Chapter 464. Bai Yinxin came in with toiletries and saw Li Mu slap himself. She asked in surprise, "Brother Li, what's wrong?" Li Mu was ashamed and didn't dare to look at her. "It's nothing," he said. "I'm just trying to clear my head." He had this dream for 2 days in a row. One day he dreamed of Heixin and the next day he dreamed of Yinxin. This made Li Mu realize that he might have suppressed himself for too long and couldn't continue like this. Cultivators also had things they couldn't control. If this continued, Li Mu couldn't guarantee that he wouldn't dream of the Empress at night. If he got used to dreaming and was caught by the Empress in his dreams, he might as well die. He had already arranged everything for Xishan. The Green Bull Demon and the others would complete the next task. After Li Mu finished washing up, he said to Yinxin, "I'm going back to Mount Baiyun. I'll be back in 3 to 5 days at most. Wait for me here. When the time comes we'll go back to Shindu together." Bai Yinxin nodded and said, "Okay, I'll be able to help you uncles here." Soon, Li Mu bid farewell to Yinxin and the group of demons. He activated the flying boat and headed for Mount Baiyun. 2 hours later, on the main peak of Fulu School, Xianxia smiled and asked, "Junior brother, you suddenly came back. Is there something important?" Li Mu waved his hand and said, "It's nothing important. Where are Han Yin and Qingqing?" Xianxia said, "They're still in seclusion." Li Mu was really depressed this time. He complained, "Why are they in seclusion every day? How can there be so much seclusion to do?" Xianxia said softly, "This is something a core disciple of Fulu school must go through before becoming the head. All the brothers have gone through it. When you leave the Great Zhou court in the future, you'll also have to go through it." Li Mu thought for a while and said, "Let me see where they're in seclusion." Xianxia flicked his sleeves. The scenery before Li Mu's eyes changed. His body appeared in another space. This place was filled with verdant mountains, birds chirped, and flowers bloomed. The ground was covered with thick vegetation. In the sky, 7 inverted mountains floated between the clouds. Between the mountains, white clouds drifted and red-crowned cranes flew. There were stairs connecting the mountains. It was a fairyland. The size of this space was no less than Li Mu's demonic emperor space. It must have been left behind by a 9th realm senior in the history of Fulu school. Although those experts had passed away, they had left behind countless legacies for the sect. Li Mu sensed the auras of Lu Hanyin and Li Qing on one of the mountain peaks. He also sensed the auras of several chiefs on the other mountain peaks. In addition, in front of Li Mu, there were balls of light that floated aimlessly in the air. Sometimes they would fly into the mountains and then fly out again. Li Mu looked at those balls of light and said in surprise, "These are memory balls of light?" Jianghu nodded and said, "These are the memories of our sect's seniors. When they reached the end of their lifespan, they would pass down their lifetime of cultivation experience through this method for future disciples to comprehend." Hearing this, Li Mu could not help but feel deep veneration for the Fulu school's seniors. Although the demonic emperor White Emperor had also left behind his memories, his goal was to be reborn thousands of years later. The Fulu school's seniors were so selfless. Even though they had passed away, they continued to shine for the sect. In their memories, there was a lifetime of cultivation experience, understanding of Abhijna and the Fulu way. Future disciples only needed to comprehend their memories, and they would be able to save themselves the hard work of groping on the path of cultivation. Of course, whether it was the Fulu way or the Abhijna way, they were all constantly evolving. The cultivation knowledge of the past might be somewhat outdated now, but it was still the same. To the sect, the memories of every expert were precious and irreplaceable resources. The selfless contributions of these experts must have played a huge role in the reason why large sects were able to last for thousands of years and pass down their legacies. Hyun Jinko looked at those balls of light and said emotionally, "This place is called the Ruins of End. It is the final resting place of the sect's seniors, and also the final resting place of us." Li Mu looked at those balls of light and understood that staying here would be of inestimable benefit to Lu Hanyin and Li Qing's cultivation. Li Mu did not intend to disturb them any further. Just as he was about to leave, a streak of light suddenly flew over from a mountain peak. Within the streak of light was a figure that Li Mu had been thinking about day and night for a very long time. Lu Hanyin looked at Li Mu from afar. Her eyes were filled with longing, as well as some other emotions that only the two of them could understand. The two of them glanced at each other. Nothing needed to be said. Li Mu took Lu Hanyin's hand and said to Xianxia, "Send us out." Xianxia asked, "Junior brother, you just came in. Don't you want to take a look around?" Li Mu smiled, "There will be plenty of opportunities in the future." Xianxia waved his sleeve again. The three of them left the ruins of End, and returned to the main peak's palace. In the next moment, Li Mu and Lu Hanyin entered the demon emperor's abode. Xianxia stood alone in the palace, stunned for a long time. The demon emperor's abode. In the clear lake, 2 fish pecked at each other patiently. In the peach blossom forest, a female bird nestled under the wings of a male bird. Below a small building, the flowers in the flower bed bloomed even more brilliantly. As the breeze blew, the stems swayed. North County. In the past few days, the lives of the people of the North County had not changed much. They worked at sunrise and rested at sunset, day after day. However, the demon world of the North County was in an uproar. The mountain spirits and wild monsters of the past could now have their own identities. They did not have to worry about becoming food for the great demons, nor did they have to worry about being killed by human cultivators. Their demon lives would undergo unprecedented changes. Under the push of the demons under the White Demon King, the matter of the demons of the North County being registered began to unfold on a grand scale. Some demons were happy while others were worried. The disciples of the Fulu school were still fine. They were not allowed to casually kill demons and seize their souls to cultivate. This was the rule of the sect. However, for some human itinerant cultivators or cultivators from small sects, this was not a good thing. Resources were indispensable on the path of cultivation. They were not like the large sects or those powerful existences who could occupy treasured lands with abundant spirit chi to cultivate. They were also not like the cultivators who relied on the imperial court who could exchange contributions for spirit jades. However, they were not willing to cultivate slowly. If they wanted to speed up their cultivation, they could only take the souls of others and refine them to strengthen themselves. They usually did not dare to make a move on humans because the Great Zhou court would investigate. No matter how strong their cultivation was, they would not be able to escape punishment. Therefore they only dared to make a move on the demons. But now they could not even touch the demons. What the hell is the imperial court doing? What does the life and death of the demons have to do with them? They don't even allow us to kill the demons. How are we going to cultivate? Hateful, really hateful. The demon world was grateful to the Great Zhou court, but the human cultivators were resentful of the imperial court because of this. Through various channels they spread their dissatisfaction. Divine capital, Imperial Palace. The local officials of the various prefectures had reported back the news as soon as possible. In the morning court, several officials looked worried. They bowed and said, "Your Majesty, isn't it a little inappropriate to offend the human race in order to win over the demons? Should we discuss this matter further?" Before the Empress could speak, a figure stepped out from the crowd. Xianxia stood in the middle of the hall and said in a deep voice, "My lords, you are wrong. Humans are born from their mothers and demons are born from their mothers. Humans and demons are all living creatures in the world. Human lives are lives and so are the lives of demons. As the most powerful country in the Celestial Empire, the Great Zhou must have a broader structure. We cannot just focus on one place. Besides, winning over the demons and giving them fair treatment will highlight the magnanimity of the great country of the Great Zhou. It will also highlight your Majesty's breadth of mind. Winning over the demons is beneficial to the peaceful coexistence of humans and demons, to the stability of the counties, and to the cohesion of the people's faith. Those human cultivators who only want to kill and walk the crooked path have contributed nothing to the Great Zhou. Why should we spoil them? Are they worthy? If they dare to blabber and stir up the emotions of the people again, I'll catch a few of them and make an example out of them." The words of Li Mu's #1 henchman Zhang Chun caused the court to fall silent. This person's words were crude but reasonable. How much benefit would it bring to the court by incorporating the demons? After several rounds of discussion, everyone agreed that this was a win-win situation for both the demons and the Great Zhou. From a humanitarian point of view, this was also the embodiment of the magnanimity of a great country. It would definitely be praised by future generations. On the other hand, some human cultivators, ever since they embarked on the path of cultivation, had completely broken away from the control of the Great Zhou. They ignored the law and used martial arts to break the rules, often causing headaches for the local government. The court actually did not encourage too many people to cultivate. For this reason, the local government kept the registration of newborns a secret. For the sake of some people who disobeyed the rules of the court and often caused chaos, it was clearly the height of stupidity to affect this important matter that would benefit the future generations. Soon, the court officials' opinions were unified with Zhang Chun's. After the court, Zhou Yi returned to Chengdu Palace and asked Mr. Mei, "Are there any six-section residences in the North Court?" Mr. Mei said, "I'll go and check in a while." Zhou Yi nodded and said, "If there are any, give them to Zhang Chun." Mr. Mei sighed, "It's only been a year and he's moved several times." Zhou Yi said, "Give them to him. Otherwise, someone will come back and say that I've neglected his people." Speaking of someone, Zhou Yi remembered that she had not heard his voice for 3 days. In these 3 days she had activated the spirit snail, but there had been no response from the other side. A few months ago when he was undercover in Meizong, it was fine if he did not respond to him. But what was he doing in these 3 days? Zhou Yi activated the spirit snail again. This time, a familiar voice finally came from the other side. Zhou Yi asked in a low voice, "What have you been doing in these 3 days? Why didn't you come back to me?" The other side of the spirit snail was silent for a moment. Li Mu's voice came again, I have been in the Demon King's cave residence for the past 3 days. I haven't received any news from your Majesty." Zhou Yi asked, "Why would you stay in the Demon King's cave residence for 3 days for no reason?" Li Mu stammered, I took care of the cave residence with my wife. Your Majesty, is there anything I can do for you?" Hearing the first few words, Zhou already understood. She said coldly, "Nothing," and cut off the supernatural power. Then she sat in Chang'e Palace and fell into deep self-doubt. Was she angry just now? Why was she angry? Why was she angry? She had no right to be angry, and there was no reason for her to be angry. Zhou did not understand why she had such thoughts. She wanted to ask Shangguan Li and Mr. Mei, but she felt that it was useless to ask them. The three people in this palace together did not know as much as the little green snake. A moment later at the Li mansion, Bai Tingxin was eating the pastries Zhou brought out from the palace and asked, "Sister Empress, what's the matter?" Zhou thought for a moment and said, "I have a friend who has encountered some problems. I want to ask you on her behalf." Bai Tingxin stuffed a piece of pastry into her mouth and said, "Ask away." Zhou was silent for a moment and said, "My friend always misses a man and wants to keep him by her side. She wants to hear his voice. When she hears that he is with another woman, she will be angry for no reason." Bai Tingxin put down a piece of pastry and said, "This question is too simple. Your friend must have fallen in love with that man." "I also feel the same way about Li Mu, the bad guy," Zhou murmured. "Is this love?" Xiao Bai ran over from the side and asked with a gossipy face, "Sister Zhou, who is this friend you are talking about? Is it Auntie Mei or Sister Ali?" Zhou came back to her senses and coughed lightly. She said, "Actually, I am talking about Ali, Chang'e Palace." Shangguan Li sneezed inexplicably. Mr. Mei, who was beside her, glanced at her and said, "You shouldn't have caught a cold. Is there someone missing you?" Shangguan Li said lightly, "Who would miss me?" Mr. Mei teased, "That's not necessarily true. Maybe it's Li Mu the lecher. He likes all young and beautiful girls. Although you are not young, you are indeed very beautiful. Beijun." Li Mu sneezed a few times. He was extremely suspicious that someone was speaking ill of him behind his back. At this time he had already left Fulu School and was on his way to Yinxin. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. After a few days of shameless two-person world, Li Mu still had to separate from Lu Hanyan, even though both of them were reluctant to part. A gentle home was also a hero's grave. Lu Hanyan was going to become the head of Fulu School in the future. Li Mu could not watch her immerse herself in a gentle home and affect her cultivation. Whether it was Lu Hanyan, Li Qing or Li Mu, all of them had to cultivate diligently. A breakthrough in cultivation meant an increase in lifespan. The higher their cultivation, the longer they could stay together. In Xishan, where the White Demon King's abode was located, the registration of monsters was still in full swing. This matter was far from as simple as the average person thought. Compared to monsters that had taken human form, there were actually more monsters that had yet to take human form. These monsters had already developed spiritual intelligence. They could communicate with humans and understand human language, but they did not transform into humans. They looked no different from ordinary wild beasts. These monsters were the most numerous and difficult to manage. However, they were the weakest and should be protected the most. However, they were scattered all over the place, causing a huge problem for the demon division's management and protection. Therefore, the Green Bull Demon and the Tiger Demon suggested to learn from the human government's methods and gather all the monsters in an area to live in groups and manage them together. This suggestion received Li Mu's approval. In this way they would be able to form a powerful force that would deter those with ulterior motives from invading. This was how the various powers of the demon country were gathered. The strength of the weak demons, the strength of the strong demons, and those who dared to open abodes all had strength that they were proud of. Monsters living in groups had both advantages and disadvantages. The advantage was that it was easy to manage and their strength was concentrated. The disadvantage was also very obvious. Monsters also needed to absorb spiritual energy to cultivate. It was naturally best for a monster to occupy a mountain. If all the monsters gathered together, it would not be long before the spiritual energy would be so thin that it would be impossible to cultivate. Li Mu also had a very simple solution to this. The problem of thin spiritual energy could be solved by a spirit gathering array. Whether it was the memories of the Thousand Illusions or the heavenly tomes of the Fulu School and the Demon Clan, there were records of the spirit gathering array. Using a few simple spiritual jades, array flags and other items, one could set up a spirit gathering array to continuously attract the spiritual energy nearby and solve the cultivation problem of these small demons. Li Mu asked Dean Xan to gather the White Demon King's subordinates who had condensed their demon cores and personally taught them how to set up the spirit gathering array. Unfortunately, the Tao of array was mysterious. Li Mu teaching them about array formations was like teaching advanced mathematics to people who had not even gone to primary school. Among the few demons, other than the green bull demon who was still struggling to hold on, the other demons had long been scratching their ears and cheeks and could not sit still. The tiger demon had even fallen asleep. Its snoring was so loud that even Li Mu's voice could be heard. Li Mu finally could not hold it in. He pointed at the tiger demon and said angrily, "Throw him out." The green bull demon grabbed the tiger king's tail and threw him out. The other demons looked in the direction where the tiger king flew out enviously. They would rather be beaten up by Big Brother Green Bull than listen to these things here. Li Mu saw their desire and secretly laughed at his stupid decision. He waved his hand and said, "Get lost, get lost. If you don't want to learn, then forget it." All the demons cheered and rushed out. The green bull demon touched the back of his head and said, "Brother Li, it's not that we don't want to, but your words are too profound. We really don't understand." Li Mu had already realized that teaching them about array formations was like playing the lute to a cow. He sighed and said, "Forget it, you can go too." The green bull demon left in shame. Li Mu turned around and found Yin Xen still sitting there. She held a small book in her hand and was seriously taking notes. Li Mu then asked, "Yin Xen, did you understand what I just said?" Bai Xin nodded and said, "There are a few parts that I don't understand." Li Mu was overjoyed. There were a few parts that she did not understand, but it was better than only understanding a few parts. He asked her a few probing questions and found that she actually answered all of them. Li Mu was very pleased. As expected of his niece. No, she was no longer his niece. No matter what it was, he was very happy right now. He could not do everything himself. If someone could help him share the burden, then he would be much more relaxed. Li Mu looked at her and said, "Then I'll only teach you one. When the time comes, I'll leave the array formation here to you." Bai Xin smiled and nodded, saying, "Okay, I also want to learn array formations from Big Brother Li." Li Mu suddenly had an idea and said, "Why don't you just take me as your master? Other than array formations, I can also teach you fulu, pills, demonic arts, painting. In short, I can teach you whatever you want to learn." Bai Xin smiled at him and then refused, "I don't want to." Chapter 465. Li Mu had always felt that taking in a disciple was a very troublesome matter. It was not easy for him to have a sudden impulse to take in a disciple to play with, but he was mercilessly rejected by Yin Xen. A forcefully picked melon was not sweet, and a forcefully taken in disciple was not fragrant either. Since she was unwilling, Li Mu did not mention it again. However, even though he did not succeed in taking in a disciple, he still taught Yin Xen everything he knew about formations. He did not know if it was because she had half of the dragon bloodline, but although she was also a demon, her comprehension was much stronger than those big demons. She often understood with a little guidance, and could even draw inferences from one example. This fully satisfied Li Mu's sense of achievement. It was human nature to be good at teaching others, especially Li Mu who had a lot of skills but no one to inherit them. After a long time he was bored and needed to find someone to teach him. The disciple he taught was so smart, so as a teacher he was naturally happy. Although Yin Xen was still unwilling to call Li Mu sir. In one night, Li Mu finished teaching her the basics of formations. Currently he was only at the beginner level, but there was still a long way to go. It would not be too late to teach her slowly when they returned to the fairy's capital. The next morning, with Li Mu's help, she began to try to set up her own formations. Although the number of demons was far less than humans in the entire North County, there were close to 1,000 demons that had transformed and had not transformed. Among them, 80 to 90% were small demons that had not transformed. According to the division of the mountains, each mountain could be assigned to dozens of demons. After the spirit gathering formation was set up, the density of spiritual energy in the entire mountain was about the same. The demons opened up an open space on their own mountain and built houses to live in. He was already a demon citizen of the Great Zhou dynasty. Of course, he could not be like the mountain spirits and wild monsters in the past, casually digging a hole and calling it an immortal's cave. He deserved to be called an uncivilized beast. Yin Xen was setting up a spirit gathering formation for Mountain Number 1. Mountain Number 1 was where the North County Demon Division was located. The Green Ox and the Tiger King were the chief and deputy demon commanders. This mountain was being built on a large scale, imitating the Imperial Court's Yamen and building a government office. The Department of Demons was directly under the Department of Consecration. It was completely modeled after the Great Zhou Court. Other than the government offices, there was also an official residence. The Tiger King wanted to compete with the Green Bull Spirit for the 5-entry mansion in building one of the first mountain. Neither of them was willing to submit to the other. After fighting for a while, the Tiger King finally gave up with a dejected expression. Under Li Mu's constant guidance, Xianxia finally finished setting up the first set of array formations that she learned in her demon life. After the last piece of spiritual jade was completed, the demons of Mount No. 1 immediately sensed the changes. The spiritual energy around them was rapidly condensing. In less than 2 hours, the concentration of spiritual chi here was already several times higher than usual. This meant that cultivating here for one day was equivalent to cultivating for several days in the past. Tiger King wiped his saliva and said, "This thing is good. If I cultivate here in 10 years, no, in 5 years I will be able to break through to the 5th realm." Green Ox and Tiger King were the strongest subordinates of the White Demon King, but they were still some distance away from the 5th realm. Li Mu quickly realized a problem. There were 36 Department of Demons in the Great Show. In any case, they were the officers of the Department of Demons. 4th realm cultivation was far from enough. One had to know that the chief officers of the 36 counties all had to be at least at the 5th realm. If outsiders found out that the Great Demon Commander was only at the 4th realm, they would think that there were no demons in the Great Show. However, compared to the Demon Nation, the Great Zhou did not have any powerful demons. A 5th realm demon could already be called a demon king. There was still no news of a 6th realm demon in the Great Zhou. Li Mu had to think of a way to raise their cultivation as soon as possible. Suddenly, an idea flashed through his mind. He stretched out his hand. A white light flashed and a few jade bottles appeared in his hand. 3,000 years ago, the Demon Emperor Baidi had set up a vicious trap. He wanted to use the top-notch elixirs of the demon clan to attract the later generations to kill each other. Back then, in the Demon Emperor's cavern, the demons had fought until their blood flowed like a river for these elixirs. In the end, these bottles of elixirs were secretly kept by Li Mu. Tiger King and Green Ox Demon looked at the jade bottles in Li Mu's hand. Although they did not know what was inside, they instinctively swallowed their saliva. The things in the bottles were very attractive to them. Li Mu threw a bottle to each of them and said, "These two are heaven-level breakthrough pills. It should be enough for you to break through to the 5th realm. Hurry up and refine them. Only when your cultivation increases can you manage the demons in the North region." Tiger King said in disbelief, This is really for us?" Li Mu glanced at him and asked, "You don't want me to give it to Rat King?" Rat King's eyes shone with green light. He immediately stood up and said, "He doesn't want it, but I want it. Go, go, go." Tiger King sent him flying with his tiger claw. He said to Li Mu, I want it, I want it. Thank you, brotherly, thank you, brotherly." Green Ox Demon also thanked him gratefully. Regardless of whether it was a human or a demon, a pill that could help a cultivator break through to the 5th realm was a treasure. Li Mu said again, "I will teach you 2 new cultivation techniques. In the future you will cultivate according to these techniques." The demonic techniques of the various races in the heavenly tomes were very complete. If one had enough talent and luck, it was enough to allow a small demonic beast to cultivate to the 9th realm. Li Mu circulated his mana through the 2 demonic beasts' bodies and said, "Remember this mana circulation route. In the future, cultivate according to this mantra. Other than the 2 of you, you cannot tell anyone else about this." It was not that Li Mu was stingy. It was just that he knew the nature of the green ox and the tiger, but he did not know about the other demons. Once he passed on top techniques to demons with evil intentions, it would bring endless trouble to the imperial court. It was also a sin that Li Mu created himself. Tiger King followed the technique that Li Mu taught him. After circulating his mana in his body, his eyes were filled with shock. Then he looked at Li Mu seriously and said, "Brotherly, no, big brotherly, in the future you are my big brother." Green Ox Demon knelt on the ground and bowed respectfully to Li Mu. Tiger King saw this and also knelt down without hesitation. He bowed a few times to Li Mu. Li Mu not only gave them pills but also imparted knowledge to them. On the path of cultivation, demons had a much harder time than humans. It was even more difficult to obtain a cultivation technique. The cultivation technique that Li Mu taught them was almost tailor-made for them. It allowed their cultivation speed to increase exponentially. With so much kindness, the 2 demons did not know how to repay it. Li Mu waved his hand and said, "All right, we are all brothers. There is no need to be so formal. After you have refined these pills, I will teach you some of the techniques of our race." After giving the 2 realm breaker pills to the 2 demons, Li Mu suddenly thought of Xianxia. This little girl should not think too much. He looked at the girl beside him and said, "Xianxia, don't think too much. It is not that I don't want to give them to you, but your cultivation is still too shallow. The realm breaker pills are useless to you. Also, these 2 pills are from 3,000 years ago. Who knows if they have expired? When your cultivation is enough, I will make new ones for you. The green bull demon had already poured out the pills. His 2 large eyes looked at Li Mu. Tiger King had just thrown the pills into his mouth. He looked at Li Mu in shock. Finally, he gritted his teeth and swallowed the pills. Reality proved that even if it was a pill from 3,000 years ago, as long as it was preserved properly, its medicinal effects would not be affected. Li Mu's efforts were not wasted. In just 3 days, the 2 demons had refined the pills and reached the 5th level. As long as they stabilized for a while, they would be able to use the full power of the 5th level. In order to increase their strength again, Li Mu taught them the techniques of their race and gave them new weapons. The green bull demon received a steel mace. The tiger demon received a 9-ringed saber. They were both high-grade earth-level magic treasures. After the 2 demons received them, they could not bear to part with them and went outside to spar. The North County Demon Division finally had a decent master. A 5th-level demon cultivator could barely be considered a master in the demon nation. But in the Great Zhou demon world they could do whatever they wanted. However, the strength of the entire demon division was still not enough in front of a true master. Other than the spirit-gathering formation, Li Mu also planned to help them set up a defensive formation. The highest level of formations was not to use spiritual jades or formation flags to form a formation to block the enemy. Instead, it used the power of heaven and earth. According to different terrains, it borrowed the power of heaven and earth to form a formation. For Xianxia, who had just come into contact with formations, this was still difficult to understand. When Li Mu set up the formation, he would let her observe and then explain it to her in detail. On a mountain wall somewhere, Li Mu and Xianxia, one on top and one on the bottom, were carving formation patterns. Formation patterns were similar to Fulu. These seemingly random lines could mobilize the power of heaven and earth. As Li Mu drew, he sighed. It was good to bring Xianxia out. She would only cause trouble for him and take advantage of him. Xianxia was completely different. She was obedient and capable. She reduced his burden by a lot. After Li Mu finished drawing a part of the formation patterns, he felt the spirit snail vibrate. He took out the spirit snail and the Empress's voice came from it. "What are you doing?" Li Mu said honestly, "I'm helping the North County Demon Division set up a formation." The Empress liked to check on Li Mu. If she missed a call from the spirit snail, she could make dozens or hundreds of calls. Li Mu reported on his recent work and the progress of the North County Demon Division. He also chatted with the Empress and learned about the protests of the independent cultivators in the Great Zhou. Li Mu had already expected this. The imperial court protected the demons, but it had little impact on the disciples of the large sections. The Fulu school and other large sects had strict restrictions on their disciples. They were not allowed to kill demons to take the shortcut of cultivation. However, these independent cultivators often did such things. More than 90% of the heretical cultivation wanted by the imperial court were independent cultivators. About 70% to 80% of the heretical cultivation wanted by the demons were independent cultivators. These evil human cultivators could be said to be the cancer of both the human and demon worlds. Among them, there were people who followed the righteous path, but there were more people who followed the evil path. They were the unstable factors in the Great Zhou. They had cultivation and did not obey the rules of the government. They did not contribute much to the Great Zhou. They also occupied some famous mountains and rivers and opened up cultivation caves. They did not allow others to get close to them. The local government also turned a blind eye to them. As long as they did not harm the local government was not willing to provoke them. However, it was different now. The demons who had submitted to the imperial court were also citizens of the Great Zhou. Attacking them was defying the imperial court. In order to take the shortcut of cultivation, they often killed demons to cultivate. Taking in the demons would inevitably arouse their dissatisfaction. As for these kinds of people, it was not advisable to completely fall out with them. Li Mu had already thought of a countermeasure. Rather than oppose them, it was better to pull them to his side. The office of worship was already understaffed. They were still busy with the affairs of the Shindu and the central commandery. A single office of worship was not enough to manage the 36 commanderies of the Great Zhou. It was better to set up another office of worship in each commandery and recruit some independent cultivators. They would assist the local government and pacify the commandery. Of course, the imperial court would have to pay a price. Taking in these people would inevitably increase the expenses of the national treasury. However, there were not many things in the world that could be done without risking anything. If you wanted to gain something, you had to lose something. Li Mu had already written the solution to this matter in the memorial. He asked the Empress, "Where is Her Majesty now?" Zhou Yi said, "In the Chang'e Palace." Li Mu said, "Her Majesty, look at the memorial on the table next to your hand. It's the third column from the left, the third from the last. I've already written in great detail about the independent cultivators." Zhou Yi found the memorial that Li Mu had mentioned and said, "I've found it." Li Mu sighed inwardly. That memorial was still in its original position. This meant that after he left, his beloved Her Majesty the Empress had not looked at the memorial. Li Mu said, "Then I'll take my leave." Below, Bianxin raised her head and said, "Brother Li, come down. It's my turn." Li Mu put away the spirit conch and flew down. With Inxin's cultivation, she could only draw simple formation veins. Thus, Li Mu dismantled the formation veins. She only drew the simple ones, leaving the complicated ones for Li Mu to draw himself. In the Chang'e Palace, Zhou Yi held the spirit conch in her hand. The last sentence she heard was still echoing in her ears. There was a woman beside Li Mu. From the sound of it, it should be the white snake. Did the white snake just say that Li Mu should come down and she should be on top? Why should she be on top? Although Zhou Yi did not have such experience, she had seen a certain scene in Li Mu's dream. Could it be that he, in the North County, Li Mu was drawing talismans when he felt the spirit conch vibrate again? His hand trembled and almost destroyed a formation vein. Fortunately, he was calm and steady. If it were anyone else, their efforts in this hour would have been wasted. Opposite the spirit conch, the Empress asked, "What are you doing?" Li Mu said helplessly, "Didn't I just say that I'm setting up a formation?" Zhou Yi said, "Is there someone else beside you?" Li Mu said, "Yes, Inxin is helping me draw formation veins. She's drawing the simple ones on top and I'm drawing the complicated ones below." On the other side of the spirit conch, there was suddenly no sound. "Your Majesty? Your Majesty, Your Majesty, are you still there?" Li Mu asked a few questions but did not hear a response. He helplessly put away the spirit conch and continued to work. The Empress did not know what was wrong with her. However, after counting the days, Li Mu did not find it strange. Women would always be strange for a few days. At this time in the Chang'e Palace, Zhou Yi's face was red. She put away the spirit conch in shame. She was the empress of a country. How could she become like this? Must be a damn heart demon. It was the heart demon that always made her think nonsense. She summoned Shangguan Li in and said, "I'm going to cultivate in seclusion for a few days. I won't attend the 2 morning court sessions." Chapter 466. Reality proved that it was easier to get things done with connections. Under the guidance of a few powerful demons, the North County demons quickly became demons and became citizens of the Great Zhou. However, other than the North County, Li Mu did not have such connections in other places. Of the 36 counties in the Great Zhou, only the North County responded to the Imperial Court's call. It was far from enough. Li Mu gathered the Green Bull Demon, Tiger Demon, Rat Demon, and the other demons and asked, "Do you have any relatives or friends in other counties? It's best if you know them well and have good natures." The demons all shook their heads. They were all born and raised in the North County and did not know any foreign demons. The Tiger King thought for a while and suddenly said, "My aunt married to Yunzhong County decades ago. I have a cousin in Yunzhong County, but I haven't contacted him for a few years." Li Mu asked, "What's his cultivation level?" The Tiger King said, "He condensed a demon core 3 years ago. He should be in the 4th realm now." Li Mu clapped his hands. "He's the one then." Yunzhong County was not far from the North County. The Tiger King sent his subordinates to Yunzhong County to invite his cousin, whom he had not seen for many years, to celebrate with him. The two brothers had not seen each other for a few years and their relationship had faded a lot. However, when he heard that his cousin had advanced to the Demon King realm, Hu Chang still brought enough congratulatory gifts and came personally. In the Great Zhou, as long as a Demon King of the 5th realm did not act arrogantly near the divine capital, he could do whatever he wanted. He had a Demon King cousin in the North County. When the other demons in Yunzhong County saw him, they had to give him some face. He had to use this opportunity to get in touch with his cousin again. In the mountains of the North County, Hu Chang rode on a fierce tiger. He patted the head of the tiger under him and asked, "Have we arrived?" The tiger opened its mouth and said, "Your Majesty, we're almost there." The tiger ran for 15 minutes in the forest and finally arrived at a mountain. 2 transformed demons stood at the intersection and stopped them. They asked, "Who are you? Tell me your name." The tiger said, "The king on my back is the Tiger King's cousin. Hurry up and let us in." After the two shape-shifting monsters checked the invitation, they immediately stepped aside. Wuchang got off the tiger and walked into a tall gate. The gate had the words North County Demon Division carved on it. The gate was 10 meters tall and had all sorts of mysterious runes carved on it. Wuchang felt dizzy after looking at it for a while. He quickly looked away and did not dare to look anymore. Wuchang stepped into the gatehouse and took another step forward. Then he stopped. The air here was filled with dense spirit qi, which was many times denser than the spirit qi in his cave abode in Yunzhong County. He took a deep breath and coughed due to the impact of the spiritual aura. Wuchang's eyes lit up. If he could cultivate in such a place, wouldn't his cultivation soar? Bathing in such dense spiritual energy, he would be able to advance to the 5th realm in another 10 years. "Haha, cousin, long time no see." A hearty laugh came from the front. Wuchang looked over and a smile appeared on his face. He quickly walked over and said, "Congratulations on advancing to the Archfiend realm, cousin." The Tiger King put his arm around his shoulder and said, "Let's go. Let's have a good drink today." Wuchang followed the Tiger King for a few steps and saw a magnificent house in front of him. If he was not in the mountains, he would have thought that he was in a human town. As Wuchang walked, he asked, "Cousin, what's going on?" The Tiger King laughed and said, "Your cousin is now the North County Demon Commander of the Great Zhou. I'm in charge of the demons in the North County. Of course, I can't live as casually as before." Wuchang was shocked and asked, "Cousin, have you submitted to the imperial court?" The Tiger King said unhappily, "Submit? What do you mean submit? I'm in charge of the demons, protect them and work for them. How can that be considered submitting?" "Don't call me that." Wuchang said a few words and asked expectantly, "Cousin, can I come here to cultivate in the future?" The Tiger King said, "You're doing well in Yunzhong County. What are you doing here?" Wuchang said honestly, "The spiritual qi here is much more abundant than in my cave abode. It's faster to cultivate here." The Tiger King glanced at him and said, "Look at you. It's just a spirit gathering array. When the time comes, I'll get someone to set one up for you." Wuchang quickly said, "No need, no need. I'll just cultivate with you." He was not stupid. Without strength, what was the use of a spirit gathering array? In the Great Zhou, the blessed grotto heavens with abundant spiritual qi were all occupied by humans. Some of the inferior cave abodes that human cultivators looked down on were also occupied by demon cultivators. He was just a small demon of the 4th realm. If he cultivated in such a place with abundant spiritual qi, it would not be long before a stronger human or demon took over his cave abode. They would use his tiger skin as a blanket and cut off his penis to make wine. To them, possessing treasures that did not match their strength was akin to wishing for an early death. The Tiger King led him into the house that he had just built and said, "Actually, I've asked you to come here for an important matter. You should know that the Imperial Court is planning to establish a demon division in each county to manage the demon race. There are no suitable candidates in Yunzhong County for the time being. Do you want to be the demon commander of the demon division in Yunzhong County?" Wuchang was stunned for a moment and then shook his head repeatedly. It was common knowledge among the demon race that humans could not be trusted. If he became a lackey of the human imperial court, not only would he be in danger, he would also be ridiculed by all the demon race. Huli did not force him and said, "Since you're not willing, then forget it." He took out a flying sword and a few bottles of elixirs and placed them on the table. Wuchang's tiger eyes sparkled. The flying sword had a strong spiritual qi. At first glance, he could tell that it was not an ordinary magical weapon. It was much better than his own weapon. The spiritual qi on the surface of these bottles of elixirs made him restless. He looked at the Tiger King and was excited. Did his cousin give him all these? The Tiger King said, "You're more familiar with Yunzhong County than I am. Take these things. When you return to Yunzhong County, help me ask if there are any core condensation demons who are willing to be the demon commander of Yunzhong County. Then give these things to them. This sword is a product of the North Sect. These elixirs can increase their spiritual qi. When they have enough spiritual qi, the Imperial Court will give them a realm-breaking pill to help them break through to the 5th realm. The Imperial Court plans to let all the demon commanders reach the 5th realm within 3 years." Wuchang took a deep breath and put away these things. He said seriously, "Don't worry, cousin. I'll help you pass on the message." He stayed for a night and left early the next morning. 3 days later, he sent someone to report that there were no monsters in the Yunzhong commandery who were willing to be the demon medallion. However, in order to live up to his cousin's trust, he was willing to take up the responsibility of the demon medallion. He would unite the monsters in the Yunzhong commandery and cooperate with the imperial court to do his part in building a civilized, harmonious, free and equal Great Zhou. In the North County Demon Division, Li Mu stared at the cauldron in front of him. Refining elixirs was more difficult than writing talismans. He had to control the flame and the precious elixirs in the cauldron. Every time he sweated, Enxn would take out a handkerchief and gently wipe it for him. It was very difficult to gain something without risking anything. The reason why the North County was so successful was because of the White Demon King. If he wanted to rope in demons from other places, it was the same as rogue cultivators. He had to give them enough benefits to move them. A relationship of interest was the most intimate relationship. Compared to humans, demons had too few resources. Their grotto heavens and blessed lands were all occupied by humans. They could only cultivate in barren hills and unruly rivers with thin spirit chi. Humans had spirit jades and pills for cultivation, but demons could only rely on the spirit chi floating in the air. In the demon clan's heavenly book, there were many elixirs for demons to increase their cultivation. Li Mu doesn't have any high-level elixirs in his hand, but it's more than enough for him to concoct some elixirs that are suitable for core condensation monsters. It was difficult for demons to cultivate, and it wasn't easy for them to take shortcuts. Not many demons could resist the temptation of elixirs. Li Mu had already asked Green Ox and Tiger King to use all their connections to invite the demons from the neighboring counties to come here and observe. They could make their own choices. The effect of this was very obvious. The spiritual chi was much thicker than their cultivation cauldrons, and the treatment of the North County Demon Division's officials made the demons envious. What made them unable to control themselves was the Imperial Court's promise to raise all demon tokens to the 5th realm within 3 years. This was definitely a great opportunity to reach the heavens in one step. If they cultivated by themselves, it would take at least a few years to reach the 5th realm from the 4th realm. They might not even be able to cross that hurdle in their lifetime. If they missed this opportunity, it might become their lifelong regret. Green Ox and Tiger Demon had already proven this point. A few months ago, the two demons' strength was clearly similar to theirs. In just a few months, the gap between them was like heaven and earth. Immediately, the demons of 4 counties expressed their willingness to cooperate with the Imperial Court to establish a demon division to manage the demons of the counties. After sending off the demons of the counties, Green Ox heaved a sigh of relief and said, "Only Jianghu County is left." This time, they invited a total of 5 counties' demons. Only Jianghu County had not responded. Not only that, but the 2 demons sent by Green Ox and Tiger King had also not returned. Li Mu asked, "What powerful demons are there in Jianghu County?" Tiger King said, "Jianghu County has the Black Bear tribe. They rule over the demons of Jianghu County. The Black Bear King reached the 5th realm a long time ago and is on par with Big Brother. A few of his bear cubs are also at the 4th realm. It's one of the stronger counties of the demon race." Green Ox Demon asked, "Should I go take a look?" Li Mu said, "Let me go." Jianghu County was adjacent to the demon country and did not have any orthodox sects overseeing it. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was the most chaotic county in the Great Zhou. The demons there were even more unscrupulous. Compared to the North County, it was more important to restrain the demons of Jianghu County. Accompanied by Yinxin, Li Mu personally flew to the territory of the Black Bear tribe in Jianghu County. On the flying boat, Yinxin said doubtfully, "The demon kings of the nearby counties all know each other. Back then father brought me and Tingxin to the Black Bear tribe. Although the Black Bear King looks fierce, he's actually a reasonable demon king. He usually restrains his subordinates and does not let them harm humans. Logically speaking, he should agree to this matter that benefits both humans and demons." Regardless of whether he was a reasonable bear or not, incorporating the demons was the Imperial Court's policy. It would not change for anyone. The demons of the counties could choose not to cooperate with the Imperial Court and not be registered as demons. However, if anyone dared to openly oppose the Imperial Court, they would not have a good ending. The two flew for more than 2 hours and entered the territory of Jianghu County. Yinxin pointed at a mountain in front and said, "It's there. That's the cave of the Black Bear tribe." Li Mu and she landed on a mountain. Yinxin said doubtfully, "That's strange. There should be bear demons guarding this place. Where did they go?" Li Mu sensed and discovered a few powerful demon auras in the distance. He said in a low voice, Don't speak. Follow me. Black Bear Ridge. To the people of Jianghu County, this name was perhaps unfamiliar. Jianghu County had many mountains and many demons in the mountains. The people usually did not go deep into the mountains. Even the boldest woodcutter only moved about halfway up the mountain. However, to the demons of Jianghu County, there was not a single demon that did not know about Black Bear Ridge. That was the territory of the Bear Demon Clan. The leader of the Bear Demon Clan was a level 5 Bear Demon. He was one of the few Demon Clan experts in the Jianghu County. Other Demon Clans did not dare to provoke the Bear Demon Clan. However, at this moment, the bear demons that dominated Jianghu County were in an extremely miserable state. A few bear demons that had yet to take human form were tied to trees. They were being whipped until their skin and flesh were lacerated. They kept howling. The bear demons that had taken human form and condensed their golden core were enraged. They wanted to save them, but they were also in danger. Under the attacks of the other figures, they could not fight back at all. The only fifth realm bear demon was trapped in a huge barrier of light and could not escape. A handsome man looked at the bear demon within the light barrier and said with a smile, "How about it? Agree to our conditions and I'll immediately release your subordinates. If you still refuse to come to your senses, I'll kill a black bear every 15 minutes and chop off its paws." The bear demon said angrily, "I have no intention of becoming your enemy, nor will I submit to the Great Zhou court. Why must you force me?" The handsome man shook his head. "In our eyes, if you're not a friend, you're an enemy. You've already wasted some time. Once we're done with their paws, it'll be your turn." The bear demon growled, "The Great Zhou court will not let you go." The handsome man looked at him with a hint of killing intent. He said calmly, "I hate it when people threaten me with the human court. It seems like you've already made your choice." He looked at the person beside him and said, "Do it." That person pulled out his long saber and walked towards the bear demons tied to the tree. "There's something to go with tonight's wine." He looked at a bear demon and licked his lips. The long saber in his hand chopped down without hesitation. Thud. Soon, the sound of something heavy falling to the ground could be heard. The saber in that person's hand fell to the ground. He also fell head first, foaming at the mouth. A faint green color appeared on his face. Thud thud. People around them began to fall to the ground. In the blink of an eye, only 3 people were left standing. A barrier of light suddenly appeared around the handsome man, blocking a poisonous arrow that was aimed at his throat. The other 2 figures also blocked the poisonous arrow. They flew behind the handsome man and vigilantly observed their surroundings. The handsome man looked at his subordinates who had fallen to the ground. His expression was gloomy. He shouted, "Who dares to stab us in the back? Come out if you dare." 2 figures walked out from behind a large tree in front of them. They were a man and a woman. Both of them were young and handsome. The young man looked at the handsome man and said calmly, "So it's you, the fox, who's playing tricks." The handsome man stared at him and asked, "Who are you?" Limu was too lazy to talk nonsense with him. He waved his hand and a golden light shot out, binding the 3 people tightly. The immortal binding lock was the most practical of all the treasures the Empress gave him. It was so fast that ordinary 5th realm cultivators would not be able to react to it. They would be bound in an instant. Incorporating the demon race was beneficial to the imperial court. As expected, the demon sect would not just stand by and do nothing. However, he did not know who ordered this fox from the Meizong sect. Phantom Princess's subordinates would not do such a thing. Limu walked in front of the trapped 5th realm bear demon. He slammed his palm and the golden light barrier shattered. The bear demon was freed. He bowed to Limu and said respectfully, "Thank you for saving me." Limu said, "No need to thank me. Whether human or demon, they are all citizens of the Great Zhou. Protecting the citizens of the Great Zhou is the duty of the consecration department." The bear demon's eyes flashed. He bowed to Limu again and went to rescue his trapped subordinates. The 3 5th realm cultivators, including the handsome man, did not expect to be captured by the young man in front of them. They could not use their magic power and were extremely shocked. At this moment, 3 powerful auras were approaching rapidly from afar. Feeling the 3 auras, Limu's expression changed but quickly returned to normal. The 3 demons that were bound by the immortal binding chains were overjoyed. They shouted, "Lord Phantom Princess, save us." The 3 figures arrived in an instant. 2 demons and 1 ghost landed in front of Limu. Limu looked at Phantom Princess, Hu Jiao and Hu Lu. He said, "3 foxes, we meet again." Phantom Princess looked at the 3 tied-up people and said, "Give them to me." Limu asked, "Do you know what they did?" Phantom Princess said, I did not give them such an order. I will bring them back and deal with them. Li Mu thought for a while and said, the Imperial Court owes you a lot. I can give you face and give them to you. However, I will destroy their cultivation as punishment. The three demons said in fear, Lord Phantom Princess, no. A trace of hesitation appeared in Phantom Princess's eyes. Seeing the tragic state of the bear demon, she finally nodded. Li Mu's fingers were like lightning. He pointed at each of the three demons. The auras of the three demons immediately withered. Most of the spiritual power in their bodies dissipated. They could only barely maintain their human forms. Li Mu took back the immortal binding chains. Phantom Princess waved her hand and the three demons were taken into the flask heaven space. She looked up at Li Mu again and said with a complicated expression, I didn't expect you to really do it. Li Mu said, I'm a real man, I'll keep my word. Phantom Princess thought for a moment and said, if what you said is true, Maison will not go against the Great Zhou court in the future. She did not say anything more. She looked back at Hu Lu and Hu Jiao and whispered, let's go. Hu Jiao looked at Yin Xn beside Li Mu and said, I was right. You really like to play with snakes. Li Mu, you can reconsider what I said last time. We also have snake demons in Thousand Fox Country. They are twin sisters. I promise you they won't let you down. The black bear spirit took the initiative to ask, Sir, you came here to establish the Jianghu County Demon Department, right? Li Mu nodded and said, the Demon Department of a commandery needs a demon king who can intimidate the demons. Is Bear King willing to take on this responsibility? The black bear spirit did not hesitate and said, I am willing. He knew very well that he had to choose between the demon sect and the imperial court. At this point, it was impossible for him to stay out of trouble and not offend both sides. He could choose to agree or remain neutral from the imperial court. However, if he did not follow the demon sect, he would definitely be killed by the demon sect. Rather than that, he would rather rely on the imperial court and obtain their protection. They were demons born and raised in the Great Zhou. They had a certain sense of belonging to the Great Zhou. However, humans had always adhered to the idea that those who were not of the same race must have different intentions. They had never accepted the demons. The demons of the Great Zhou had been waiting for this day for thousands of years. After establishing the Jianghu County Demon Department, the northwestern commanderies had been settled. The remaining commanderies could be handed over to the Consecration Department. The two high consecrators would personally lead the charge to convince the demons through reason and slowly push forward. To prevent the same thing from happening again, Li Mu set up an offensive and defensive formation in the Bear Demon Cave in the Black Bear Ridge. With the Black Bear King's cultivation, unless a 6th realm cultivator attacked, it would be difficult for anyone below the 6th realm to break through. As for the Demon Nation and the Demon Sect, if cultivators above the 6th realm appeared openly in the Great Zhou and attacked the demons and civilians of the Great Zhou, it would be tantamount to declaring war on the Great Zhou. The last Nether Saint to do this was already gone. As long as a 6th realm cultivator did not appear, this formation could ensure the safety of the Bear Demon tribe. After returning from Jianghu County, Li Mu prepared to return to the Immortal's capital. If he had to deal with every commanderies in the Great Zhou personally, then what was the point of having so many consecrators? The annual salary that the imperial court gave to the consecration department was better given to him alone. Li Mu brought Yinxin and was already on the flying boat back to the Immortal's capital. In the Thousand Fox Nation, Phantom Princess looked at Bai Xian and questioned, why did you make such a decision without the approval of the elders? Bai Xian glanced at her and said calmly, the Great Zhou court wants to establish the demon department in the commanderies and divide the demons. They have ulterior motives. How can we let them do as they wish? What's wrong with me asking them to destroy the Great Zhou court's plan? Phantom Princess's lips moved, but she was speechless for a moment. Bai Xian looked at her meaningfully and said, Junior sister, don't forget your identity and the responsibility of the Maison sect. Don't think that I don't know. In Jianghu County, you flirted with Li Mu in the Great Zhou and watched Li Mu destroy our people's cultivation. I won't report this to the Sage sect for now. I hope you can take care of yourself. Hu Jiao said angrily, what do you mean watch? Do you know how strong Li Mu is? Even if we worked together, we were no match for him. Only Lord Phantom Princess could bring them back and spare their lives. Otherwise, their heads would have been chopped off by the Great Zhou court. You wouldn't even be able to see them. Bai Xian's face darkened and he said coldly, is this the place for you to interrupt? Hu Jiao snorted and said, "You? I wouldn't interrupt even if you asked me to." "Disgusting," Phantom Princess said. "Hu Jiao, leave first." Although Hu Jiao looked angry, she still left. Only Phantom Princess and Bai Xian were left. Bai Xian's face softened a little. He looked at Phantom Princess and said, "Junior sister, you know how I feel about you. In these years, you disobeyed the sage sect's orders many times. I helped you hide it. Including this time, I won't tell the sage sect. But I need you to give me a response." Phantom Princess sighed and shook her head. "Sorry, senior brother Bai. I don't have any romantic feelings for you." Bai Xian looked disappointed and said, "I'm being sentimental." After he finished speaking, his expression returned to normal, and he turned around to leave. Bai Xian returned to the palace and saw a young man sitting in his seat. Behind the young man were 3 old men. The 3 old men gave Bai Xian the feeling that they were ordinary people. But the 3 black lotuses embroidered on their chests made Bai Xian's pupils shrink. In the sage sect, 3 black lotuses represented elders of the 7th realm. Xiandu. The consecration department had already made steady progress in the demon division. The 36 demon divisions were directly under the consecration department and were not under the jurisdiction of the imperial court. The local government of each county had no right to mobilize the demon division. Even Li Mu didn't believe in the imperial court, let alone the demon clan. During the time of the previous emperor, the imperial court had done many despicable things and caused a lot of trouble for the empress and Li Mu. Li Mu didn't forget that the demon division was directly under the consecration department, and the consecration department was directly under the empress. This could avoid many problems. This way the Great Zhou had 2 imperial courts. They didn't affect each other and were both controlled by the empress. Li Mu only did one thing these days, and that was to make pills. From the demon clan's heavenly book, Li Mu obtained a pill formula for the demon clan. From the pill cauldron sect's heavenly book, Li Mu obtained the method of making pills. After returning to Xiandu, he applied for some high-grade spiritual herbs from the Empress to make realm-breaking pills. A realm-breaking pill that could help a 4th realm to 5th realm was already a heaven-grade pill and wasn't easy to make. As for a realm-breaking pill that could increase the chances of a 5th realm to 6th realm, it was even at the saint level. Currently, Li Mu didn't consider it. In order to ensure that he wouldn't be disturbed, Li Mu's place of making pills was the secret underground room of Jianghu Palace. It was also the Empress' place of seclusion. A cauldron of pills was about to be completed. Li Mu's forehead was already covered in sweat, but he couldn't reach out to wipe it away. At this moment he missed the time when Yinxin was by his side. Although she couldn't help him much, she could still wipe away his sweat. As Li Mu was thinking about this, a slender white hand reached out from the side and used a handkerchief to wipe away his sweat. Li Mu turned around and saw the Empress's face. He was a little flattered. "Your Majesty," Zhou Yi said softly, "focus on making pills?" Li Mu turned his head back and wholeheartedly began to refine pills. In fact, he had some complaints in his heart just now. He was just a small secretary, but he cared about the Empress's heart. He approved the memorials, did the undercover work, drew the fulu and made the pills. Even the donkeys in the production team didn't dare to order him around. But the moment the Empress lowered herself to personally wipe away his sweat, Li Mu felt that it was all worth it. Then, Li Mu couldn't help but despise himself. He was so easily satisfied that he was bought over by small favors. How embarrassing. In front of the Empress, his heart had to be harder. Beside him, Zhou Yi had already peeled an orange. She took out a piece and said, "Open your mouth." Li Mu opened his mouth and she slowly put the piece of orange into Li Mu's mouth. This time Li Mu was really confused. It had only been half a month and the Empress had changed a lot. Not only did she wipe away his sweat, but she also fed him oranges. She used to be good to him, but she wouldn't lower herself to do something like serving others. Li Mu swallowed the piece of tangerine with trepidation. After refining this cauldron of pills, when he returned home, he secretly gave Lord Mei a look. Walking out of the palace, Li Mu slowed down. Mr. Mei came from behind and asked, "What's the matter?" Li Mu was confused. "Did Her Majesty do anything strange when I wasn't here?" Mr. Mei said unhappily, "What strange things could Her Majesty do? If not, then forget it." Li Mu shook his head and went home on his own. Mr. Mei glanced at him, turned around and complained, "Strange?" Then her expression froze. Strictly speaking, Her Majesty did seem a bit strange when Li Mu wasn't here. For example, she went to Li Mu's house more often than when Li Mu wasn't here. And she didn't go to see Wan Wan and Xiao Bai. Instead, she spent more time with the little green snake. When did Her Majesty become so familiar with the little green snake? When Li Mu returned home, he was welcomed by 4 beautiful girls. Wanwan, Xiaobai, and Yinxin were fine, but Tingxin was really clingy. As long as Li Mu was in his house, she would think of ways to pester him. Sometimes she would ask him questions about cultivation, and sometimes she would ask him to teach her supernatural powers. The key was that she couldn't learn it in one try. Li Mu often had to teach her 10 or even dozens of times. In the process, a lot of physical contact was unavoidable. Even though Li Mu was already very careful, he couldn't avoid her rubbing here and there. Teaching her supernatural powers was more torturous than refining pills and writing talismans. Li Mu had no choice but to teach Yinxin first and then let Yinxin teach her. In the room, Bai Tingxin pouted and said unhappily, "He's deliberately avoiding me." Bai Yinxin glanced at her and said unhappily, "Who told you to always be so unruly?" Bai Tingxin said, "Happiness is fought for by oneself. I have to work hard for my own happiness." Bai Yinxin shrugged and said, "Then you slowly fight for it. I'm going to sleep." Bai Tingxin walked out of the room and stood at the door. Her eyes were rolling around. Suddenly, a light flashed in her eyes and a plan came to her mind. In Li Mu's room he was planning to rest. Before going to sleep he had just chanted the clear heart chant twice. There was a restless snake at home that was thinking of ways to provoke him every day. After having nightmares for 3 consecutive days, he didn't dare to sleep without chanting the clear heart chant a few times before going to sleep. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. Li Mu got out of bed and opened the door. He saw Lu Hanyan standing outside. He was stunned for a moment and then he said in surprise, "You're back." Lu Hanyan threw herself into his arms. Li Mu wanted to hug her, but he suddenly lowered his head and looked at her slender legs wrapped around his waist. Lu Hanyan was still somewhat reserved. She had never done such a thing to Li Mu. Moreover, to be honest, although her legs were also very long, they were not so slender. After carefully feeling it, Li Mu felt the difference. This little snake was getting more and more overboard. She had only learned the basics of the alien transformation technique, and she dared to show off in front of him. If he didn't teach her an unforgettable lesson this time, he didn't know what she would do in the future. Li Mu didn't expose her immediately. He smiled and said, "Come in." Lu Hanyan smiled and followed him into the room. Li Mu closed the door of the room and set up a soundproof barrier. Soon, Bai Tingxin's scream came from the room, but it was blocked in the room by the barrier. A moment later, in Bai Yinxin's room. Looking at her sister lying on her bed with teary eyes, Bai Yinxin sighed helplessly. She lifted up her sister's skirt and took off her white underwear. Then she ground the healing pill into powder and carefully applied it on her sister's wound. Bai Tingxin grimaced in pain and gritted her teeth. "I won't admit defeat." Last night, Li Mu had taught the disobedient green snake an unforgettable lesson. Presumably she wouldn't dare to be impudent in the near future. The next morning he went to the palace without eating breakfast. In Jianghu Palace he saw Lady Ju, whom he hadn't seen in a long time. Lady Ju, who was dressed in black, had a very solemn expression. Mr. Mei and Shangwan Li also had solemn expressions. Li Mu looked at them and asked in puzzlement, "What happened?" Lady Ju said in a deep voice, "The Yao nation has suddenly undergone a huge change. The Tianlang kingdom has announced that it has joined the demon sect and has annihilated and annexed several nearby Yao nations. The Thousand Fox Nation's Meizong sect is in internal strife and the Meizong sect is under the control of the Bai royal family. The great elder of the Sixth Realm has been imprisoned and the fate of the Seventh Realm's 10,000 illusions monarch is unknown." Chapter 468. Lady Ju's words shocked Li Mu so much that he couldn't regain his senses for a long time. He had stayed in the Yao nation for a long time and knew the situation of the demon race. The celestial wolf race was the leader of the 4 major demon races in the demon nation. Their overall strength was stronger than the Thousand Fox Nation with the Heaven Lord of Illusions. They had always been the enemy of the Thousand Fox Nation and the Meizong sect. The Heaven Lord of Illusions was a 7th realm elder of the demon sect and had a pivotal position in the demon sect. Now, the Celestial Wolf Kingdom had defected to the demon sect, the Meizong sect was in internal strife, the Grand Elder was imprisoned, and even the Heaven Lord of Illusions of the 7th realm was unknown. How could Li Mu believe this? The Empress was only at the 7th realm and wasn't much stronger than the Heaven Lord of Illusions. Li Mu couldn't imagine what kind of existence could almost kill a 7th realm cultivator. A battle between two 7th realm cultivators could destroy the entire Thousand Fox Nation. Li Mu's first reaction was disbelief. He asked in a low voice, "Is the news true?" Lady Ju said solemnly, "It's true. Many of our spies in the Yao Nation have sent back urgent reports. Even we don't know why the demon sect would have internal strife and attack their own 7th realm cultivator. It's said that 3 7th realm elders of the demon sect took advantage of the critical moment when the Heaven Lord of Illusions was in seclusion to launch a sneak attack on him. The Heaven Lord of Thousand Fox Nation escaped with serious injuries. There was also internal strife in the Meizong sect. The Bai family of the Thousand Fox Nation took advantage of the chaos to imprison Grand Elder Huan Yun and take control of the Meizong sect. Li Mu roughly knew the reason why the demon sect attacked the Heaven Lord of Illusions. Although the Heaven Lord of Illusions was powerful, he often disobeyed the orders of the demon sect. A disobedient 7th realm teammate was even more threatening than a 7th realm enemy. However, he didn't expect the conflict between the Heaven Lord of Illusions and the demon sect to be so serious that the demon sect would send 3 7th realm elders to kill him. A battle between 7th realm cultivators had the power to destroy the world. The 3 7th realm cultivators chose the time when the Heaven Lord of Illusions was in seclusion. Even so, he still managed to escape. Li Mu didn't care if 10,000 Illusions Heaven Monarch was fine or not. He asked Lord Ju, "Where is Phantom Princess from Meizong sect?" Lady Ju said, "When the incident happened, Phantom Princess was not in Thousand Fox country. However, I believe that the Bai family and the Devil Dao will not let her off." The Crown Prince of Thousand Fox country, Bai Xian, has now become the King of Thousand Fox country and the Grand Elder of Meizong sect. After he ascended to the throne, he wantonly placed a bounty on Phantom Princess in the demon country. Just providing information about Phantom Princess would be able to obtain a generous reward. This was not out of Li Mu's expectations. The Fox clan's heavenly book was in Huanji's hands. Bai Xian wanted Huanji for that page of the heavenly book. Mr. Mei said worriedly, "The Celestial Wolf clan has already begun to annex the other forces of the demon nation with the secret support of the demon Dao. They probably want to unify the demon nation. If the demon nation is unified, the northern part of the Great Zhou will face an unprecedented strong enemy. Ever since the fall of the White Emperor, the demon nation had been divided for 3,000 years. In these 3,000 years, although the demon race had always been the greatest enemy of the ancestral province's humans, the divided demon race only dared to invade the borders in a small area. They did not dare and did not have the ability to invade on a large scale. However, if the demon nation was unified by the Celestial Wolf clan, the situation would be different. With the support of the demon Dao, a unified demon nation would become the Great Zhou's greatest threat. The northwestern border would never be peaceful. More importantly, once the demon nation invaded, the Ghost Realm and the southern countries would definitely take advantage of the situation to invade. The centuries-old foundation of the Great Zhou would be in jeopardy. After this news was spread, the imperial court was in chaos. Under the auspices of the Minister of War, the head of the Secretariat and the palace attendants, an impromptu court meeting was held in the Crepe Myrtle Hall. Officials of the fairies' capitals rank 4 and above were not allowed to be absent for any reason. Today there were no old party members or new party members in the Crepe Myrtle Hall. Everyone only had one identity, and that was the Great Zhou's officials. The demon nation's situation had changed drastically, and the Great Zhou court had to come up with corresponding countermeasures. In the Crepe Myrtle Hall, King Ping said in a deep voice, "The demon nation must not be unified. Otherwise the Great Zhou will be in danger. I suggest that the imperial court immediately send troops to the demon nation to suppress the Celestial Wolf clan and prevent future troubles." In the imperial court, the new party had always liked to attack the old party. However, this time they maintained a rare silence. This cannot be done. While everyone was silent, the left assistant minister of the Ministry of War stood up and said, "The Great Zhou has never participated in the internal affairs of other countries. There is no righteous reason to send troops to the demon nation. Moreover, the demon nation's terrain is complicated and difficult to supply. Fighting in the demon nation is disadvantageous to our soldiers, and we will easily fall into a passive situation." The civil and military officials had different opinions on this matter. The civil officials believed that the demon nation had always had ulterior motives. Once it was unified, it would definitely attack the Great Zhou. The Great Zhou could not sit back and watch the demon nation grow stronger. The military officials analyzed the drawbacks of sending troops to the demon nation from the perspective of starting a war. Strictly speaking, this would be interfering in the demon nation's internal affairs. It would not be legitimate. More importantly, the demon nation and the ghost realm had a similar characteristic for thousands of years. No matter how hard they fought and how ferocious they were, once the human race tried to take advantage of the situation, they would immediately join forces. If the imperial court sent troops to the Celestial Wolf clan, it would most likely have the opposite effect. It would cause the demon nation to be unified even faster. At that time, the Great Zhou's soldiers would have to fight in an away place and would have difficulties in supplies. They would also have to face an unprecedentedly united demon nation. It would be almost impossible for them to win. However, it was not as if no one had come up with a solution. Which of the people standing in the imperial court was not a sly old fox? As long as they did not fight among themselves, there would be plenty of schemes and intrigues when their thoughts collided. The demon nation originally had 4 major factions: the Wolf clan, the Bear clan, the Snake clan, and the Fox clan. These 4 major demon clans all had 7th realm Shen demons overseeing them. Although the Celestial Wolf clan was the strongest, the other 3 clans were not weak either. Now that the Fox clan was in internal strife, the Celestial Wolf clan, with the support of the demon Dao, had the intention of annexing the other demon clans and unifying the demon nation. However, how could the other 2 clans be willing to become the Wolf clan's vassals? The demon clan could support the Celestial Wolf clan, and the Great Zhou court could also secretly support the 9 Heavens Snake clan and the Tianshan Bear clan, allowing the demon clans to fight against each other and quell this disaster without expending a single soldier. The problem now was how to persuade the 2 major demon clans. Although they were not convinced by the Celestial Wolf clan, they obviously would not trust the imperial court even more. Who would be willing to take the risk of going to the demon nation and complete such an arduous mission? The Purple Myrtle Hall fell into silence again. Some of the officials were cowardly. They could give advice, but they were unwilling to risk their lives and enter the demon nation. There were also some officials who knew their own limitations. With their abilities, they were not able to persuade the 2 major demon clans. Instead, they would delay the imperial court's important matters. A white-robed figure floated in from outside. When the officials saw the middle-aged man walk into the hall, they all lowered their heads and bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Principal." The middle-aged man stood with his hands behind his back and said softly, "I'll go." There was no one more suitable than the principal of White Deer Academy, the Minister of War of the Great Zhou, to go on the diplomatic mission to the 2 major demon clans. He had the qualifications and the strength to do so. All the officials in the hall placed their hopes on him. Several days later, the principal of White Deer Academy returned to the divine capital. What he brought back was not good news. The 9 Heavens Snake clan and the Tianshan Bear clan had rejected the Great Zhou court and clearly stated that they would not cooperate with the humans. This result caused the imperial court to become nervous again. This nervousness even spread to the common people. Jianghu Palace. Zhou was no longer in the mood to read. Although she was not willing to be the emperor, since she was in this position, she had to be responsible for the people of the Great Zhou. Otherwise, she would have left the divine capital with Li Mu long ago and gone to a place where no one could find her to grow flowers and vegetables. Li Mu sat at the side and looked at her frowning appearance. He sighed softly in his heart. In fact, if it was anyone else, this matter would be a dead end. The 2 major demon clans refused to cooperate. She could not send troops and she could not watch the demon nation be unified. She definitely did not know what to do. Li Mu thought for a moment and said, "Your Majesty, since I have nothing to do, why don't I go?" Zhou rolled her eyes at him and said, "What's the use of you going when even Principal Lin can't do anything about it? Just stay by my side obediently. I can't let you take risks for everything." Li Mu said, "Subduing the demon nation is what I promised your Majesty. Besides, my wife is not by my side, so it's quite boring for me to stay here. I might as well find something to do." Lu Hanyin and Li Qing were far away in the northern commandery. There was also a restless little snake at home, who was thinking of ways to seduce him all day long. Last night it became Lu Hanyin. Tonight it might become Li Qing. Li Mu could not afford to offend her, but he could avoid her. More importantly, the Thousand Fox Nation had undergone a great change. He did not know how Hu Jiao and Huanji were doing. Li Mu had to admit that although the little snake was dead, he still could not sit back and do nothing about the companions who had fought side by side with him. Zhou looked at Li Mu and said self-deprecatingly, "So it's because you feel bored by my side. You'd rather go to the demon nation than stay here." Chapter 469. Li Mu didn't expect the Empress to look at the problem in such a tricky way. He quickly explained. Your Majesty, please don't misunderstand. That's not what I meant. Then what do you mean? I don't mean anything. Do you feel that it's meaningless to talk to me? Li Mu took a deep breath and finally said, I won't go. A moment later, he left Jianghu Palace with a helpless expression. In the past 6 months he had indeed spent more time outside than in Chengdu. The Empress had already seen the resentment in the memorial, but this time, Li Mu had to go to the Yao nation. In fact, he and Phantom Princess had the same dream, which was that humans and demons could coexist peacefully. She ended up like this largely because she didn't want to hurt innocent humans and angered the higher-ups of the demonic path. For the Great Zhou, he couldn't sit by and watch the Yao nation unite. For Little Snake, he couldn't watch anything happen to Phantom Princess and Hu Jiao. The Empress' anger was temporary. She would agree if he coaxed her later. In Chang'e Palace, Zhou Yi sat on the dragon throne. After a long silence, she asked Mr. Mei and Shangguan Li, Am I being unreasonable? Shangguan Li lowered her head and didn't answer. Mr. Mei glanced at Shangguan Li and said helplessly, Actually, Li Mu is also helping your Majesty. If the Celestial Wolf tribe unifies the Yao nation, it will be a disaster for the Great Zhou. Zhou Yi said, but he just came back a few days ago. Recently he's only been in Chengdu for a few days and gone for a few months. Mr. Mei thought for a moment and said, Your Majesty, a short separation is for a better reunion. After he calms down the chaos, he'll have time to stay by your Majesty's side. Zhou Yi sat there and fell into deep thought. Li Mu returned to the Li residence. When he opened the door, he found the Empress was already in the courtyard. Zhou Yi looked at him, took a deep breath and said, Go. I won't stop you. Li Mu breathed a sigh of relief. The Empress actually knew how to coax herself. If only everyone could be as reasonable as her. Since the Empress had already agreed, Li Mu did not have any more misgivings. Before he left, he made arrangements for Wanwan and Xiao Bai's cultivation and assigned tasks to Yin Xian and Ting Xian. In the courtyard, Li Mu hugged Wanwan and Xiao Bai and gently patted their heads. He said, Cultivate well at home and wait for me to come back. He walked towards Moaning Heart again, and the girl opened her arms to him. Li Mu didn't want to hug her at first, but she had already posed. If he didn't do anything, how could she get out of the embarrassing situation? The girl only thought about a farewell hug. If he thought too much, it would make him seem like he had a dirty mind. Li Mu hugged her gently and said, Take your time to comprehend the matrices I taught you. I will check them when I come back. Bai Yinxin nodded gently and said, I understand, Brother Li. I will work hard to cultivate. Li Mu finally looked at Bai Tingxin. Wanwan had hugged him, Xiao Bai had hugged him, and his sister had also hugged him. If he treated her differently, it would be inappropriate. As soon as he opened his arms, Bai Tingxin jumped onto him. She hooked her arms around his neck and wrapped her slender legs around his waist. She promised, Don't worry, I will cultivate well. You also have to be careful outside. I will wait for you to come back. She clung to Li Mu and was unwilling to come down. Li Mu could take her down by force. A former niece spoke like the mistress of the house. Li Mu even wanted the Empress to bring her to the palace to learn the rules. At the very least, he wanted her to learn how to hug and not cling to others. Li Mu had told her many times about this. She insisted that this was the nature of the snake race and could not be changed. Li Mu let out a long sigh of relief. Finally, he looked at the Empress and said, Your Majesty, I will leave now. Zhou Yi naturally stretched out her arms. Li Mu was stunned for a moment. He opened his arms and hugged her gently. The Empress's figure was seriously underestimated. Except for Li Mu, no one knew what kind of curves were hidden under her loose clothes. She was not inferior to Lu Hanyan. Wanwan and Xiao Bai were slightly inferior. Yinxin and Tingxin were even more incomparable. After a short hug, Li Mu took a step back. He looked at them again and turned to leave. Until his figure completely disappeared, several figures were still standing at the door. At a certain moment, Zhou Yi asked the green snake beside her, Don't you like him? Why didn't you leave with him this time? Bai Tingxin said meaningfully, As long as two people's hearts are together, why would they care if they can accompany each other every day? Zhou Yi said, But your hearts are not together. Bai Tingxin clenched her fists and said firmly, Sooner or later, it will be. Great changes had occurred in the Yao kingdom. The Great Zhou court wanted to ally with the Yao to resist the Yao, but they were rejected. They could only find other ways. In recent days, various large and small court meetings had been held. They were all discussions about resisting the Yao race. Another group of students of White Deer Academy had gone to the north. Even the dean had personally gone to Jianghu County to stand guard there and deal with possible conflicts in the future. The Secretariat, the Assistant Minister of the Secretariat, and the several secretaries of the Secretariat all looked haggard. They had yet to reach a conclusion about the Yao race. They began to miss the days when they had Li Mu. He was in the Secretariat and they did not have to worry about big or small matters. Unfortunately, in the past half-year, he had rarely participated in the affairs of the imperial court. He focused on the affairs of the consecration department. The tasks he carried out were all confidential tasks. The Secretariat did not have the authority to know. Louis scratched her hair and said with some annoyance, "Where did Lord Li go?" "In the hinterland of Yingzhou. In a hollow mountain, Qin Shi, Han Shisan, Sun Qi, and nearly 100 corpse sect disciples stood respectfully beside a platform. They said loudly, 'All corpse sect disciples greet the great elder.' Not everyone was willing to work with corpses. Thus, within the 10 demonic Dao sects, there weren't many corpse sect disciples. This time, in order to refine the 10 demonic Dao corpses, Qin Shi and the others had called back all the corpse sect disciples. In the middle of the platform, a young man stood with his hands behind his back. He said faintly, "Something happened recently that made me very sad. All the corpse sect disciples had been hiding in this mountain for the past few months. They did not pay attention to the outside world and focused on refining the sage corpses. They did not know what was happening outside. However, anyone could see that the great elder was very angry. The pressure of an expert made them unable to breathe. They could not help but lower their heads." Li Mu was silent for a moment and said again, "There is internal strife in the Meizong sect. The great elder, Huan Yun, was seized and imprisoned by a traitor." As soon as he said this, the crowd immediately exclaimed, "How is this possible? Doesn't the Lord of Heaven still exist in the Meizong sect?" "The Lord of Heaven will not sit by and do nothing." Li Mu stretched out his hand and pressed down. The crowd's voices stopped abruptly. The scene became so quiet that even a pin drop could be heard. Li Mu continued in a deep voice, "When the Lord of Heaven was in seclusion, he was attacked by 3 elders of the sage sect. He was seriously injured. It is unknown whether he is dead or alive now." His words caused an even greater uproar among the corpse sect disciples. How is this possible? The Lord of Heaven is at level 7. He can also become an elder in the sage sect. Why would the sage sect attack the Lord of Heaven? This doesn't make sense. Fake news, it must be fake news. Li Mu stretched out his hand again, and the crowd's noise immediately disappeared. He snorted and said, "The Meizong sect has made so many contributions to the sage sect. The Lord of Heaven is loyal to the sage sect, but he ended up like this. I can't take this lying down." Qin Shi looked hesitant and said slowly, "Great elder, no matter why the sage sect attacked the Lord of Heaven, it has nothing to do with us. I think we should not provoke the sage sect. Otherwise, we may follow in the footsteps of the Lord of Heaven and the Meizong sect." "What nonsense are you talking about?" Li Mu looked gloomy and said, "I am close friends with the Lord of Heaven. How can I watch him be wronged? Since the sage sect is not benevolent, don't blame the corpse sect for being unjust. From now on, the corpse sect will no longer listen to the sage sect. If you don't accept my decision, you can leave now." Qin Shi's face changed and said immediately, "Great elder." Li Mu waved his hand and said, "Say no more. I have made up my mind. If you want to leave, go ahead." The hundreds of corpse sect disciples fell into silence. The corpse sect was their home. They had everything here and they could even refine the corpses of the strongest. They were unwilling to leave, but the power of the sage sect was deeply rooted in their hearts. They did not want to offend them. Many people looked hesitant. In the end, a figure stood out. A man with a thin face said, "I, Su Shichi, will only be loyal to the sage sect. Since the great elder wants to leave the sage sect, I, Su Shichi, will leave the corpse sect from today onwards. Please don't blame me." Li Mu asked indifferently, "Anyone else?" After he said that, after a short silence, more than 10 figures stood out. "The great elder has lost his mind. I choose to leave the corpse sect. I will also leave the corpse sect. Glory sect will not let this go. Think about it carefully." "Very well." Li Mu nodded. He suddenly stretched out his finger and drew a few runes in the air. The runes lit up. He formed a seal with his hands, and the runes turned into more than 10 and shot into the figures of more than 10 people. Plop. More than 10 people fell to the ground at the same time, unconscious. Li Mu glanced at the crowd and asked indifferently, "Who else wants to leave the corpse sect?" It was the corpse of a 9th-tier elite when it was alive, so it had the potential to become an 8th-tier demonic corpse. Li Mu asked again, "What about the 2 level 8 demonic corpses?" This was what he was most concerned about. They were too powerful when they were alive. If there were no problems during the refinement process, then in principle, after the refinement, their cultivation could reach the 7th level. Speaking of the 2 Yao corpses, Qin Shi said regretfully, reporting to First Elder, "Refining these 8 Yao corpses has already exhausted all of the corpse sect's accumulated resources. We no longer have the materials to refine these 2 corpses." Li Mu had high hopes for the 2 demon corpses. With 2 7th-tier bodyguards behind him, who would dare to speak loudly to him in the future? Li Mu looked at Qin Shi and said, "What other materials do you lack? I will give them to you." Qin Shi counted with his fingers and said, "At least 10,000 pieces of spiritual jade, diamond jade, bone-growing grass, and various other body-refining materials, 49 by 7. Li Mu thought of the less than 1,000 pieces of spiritual jade he had left and waved his hand. "If you can't gather them all, then slowly gather them. There's no rush." Li Mu stayed in the corpse sect for 2 days, intending to study these 8 Yao corpses properly. He could not count on the 2 Yao corpses for the time being. Although these 8 corpses had all barely reached the 6th tier and would not be a match for a real 6th tier elite in a one-on-one fight, there was strength in numbers. The 8 corpses formed the 8 Desolation Corpse refining formation, and even a 7th tier elite would have to avoid it. Only now did Li Mu have some confidence in protecting himself in front of a 7th tier elite. Qian Huanjun was a genius. He had studied corpses to the extreme in his entire life, and also had high attainments in formations. Li Mu had benefited from his memories until now. Just as Li Mu was studying formations in seclusion, Qin Shi came to report that the Sage sect had sent envoys. Although the corpse sect had become a traitor, they would not be so stupid as to directly fall out with the Sage sect. Qin Shi carefully came to report to Li Mu. Li Mu thought for a while and said, "Go receive them and see what they want." Qin Shi returned to the belly of the mountain and bowed to a man with a black lotus embroidered on his chest. He asked carefully, "May I know the reason for your visit?" The man waved his sleeve, and a corpse appeared on the stone platform in the belly of the mountain. He looked at Qin Shi and the others and said calmly, "I want you to refine this corpse into a Yao corpse. This Yao was a 7th tier elite when it was alive. How long will it take for you to refine it into a 6th tier Yao corpse?" If it was a year ago, Qin Shi would have been very excited to see the corpse of such an elite. But now he had seen bigger scenes. This kind of small scene could no longer cause any ripples in his heart. He pretended to think carefully for a while and said, "At least a year, and it will require a lot of spiritual jades and refining materials. The corpse sect cannot gather them all at once. By the time they do, it will probably be 8 to 10 years later." After all, they had already betrayed the demon sect under the leadership of the Grand Elder. He might as well take the opportunity to extort them. The Sage sect envoy frowned and said, 8 to 10 years is too long. What materials do you need? I will bring them to you next time." Qin Shi thought for a long time and said slowly, 20,000 spiritual jades, diamond jade, bone-growing grass, and other body-refining materials. After hearing him, the Sage sect envoy's lips trembled and he said angrily, "Do you think I am stupid? Isn't it just refining a corpse? It needs 20,000 spiritual jades and 81 precious materials." Qin Shi shrugged and said, "If you are not willing to pay these, we can also refine it. However, the strength of the spirit corpse refined this way may only be at the 5th tier. The more spiritual jades and the more materials, the stronger the spirit corpse refined will be. If we can gather these materials, the spirit corpse refined will be at most at the middle stage of the 6th tier, infinitely close to the late stage." The anger on the Sage sect envoy's face gradually dissipated. Thinking carefully, what this person said made sense. How could the quality of something refined without using materials be the same as something refined with a large amount of precious materials? To him, the stronger the spirit corpse, the better. Although these things were not easy to get, he could go back and apply for them. Since he wanted to refine a corpse, he wanted to refine the best one. He quickly made a decision and said, "I will send these things to you within a month." Qin Shi added, "I will write a list for you in a moment. Remember to make 2 copies of the materials. If 1 copy fails, you have to prepare again and waste time. 2 copies is safer." Li Mu stood in a stone room in the mountainside. After a while, Xianxia came in with a long list in his hand. He asked, "First Elder, is there anything else you need? Write it down. Anyway, there is only one chance. It would be a waste if you don't write it down." Li Mu felt that what he said made sense. He did not collect the elixirs needed to refine the breakthrough elixir. Those elixirs did not exist on the Zhu continent. Some were in Xin continent, some were in Yuan continent, some were in Jianghu, and some were in Jianghu continent and Fenglin continent. If he wanted to collect them, he would have to go to all 10 continents. He picked up the pen and was about to write when he thought about his handwriting. He handed the pen to Xianxia and said, "I will say." Chapter 471. Li Mu couldn't be more familiar with the middle-aged man lying on the platform. There was a statue of him in Thousand Fox City. Although Li Mu saw the corpse of the Heavenly Lord of Illusions, it didn't mean that he was dead. Hu Jiu could still be alive without a body, and Chen Huan had died countless times. Even if he was surrounded by 3 cultivators of the same level, the chances of a 7th-level cultivator dying were too small. However, to make a 7th-level cultivator leave his body behind and escape with his soul, it was enough to imagine how fierce the battle was. Xianxia asked, "Grand Elder, this corpse?" Li Mu waved his hand and the corpse of the Heavenly Lord of Illusions disappeared. He said, "This is the corpse of the Heavenly Lord. I will keep it for the Huan clan. You can focus on refining the 2 corpses." Xianxia had already guessed the identity of this corpse, but he didn't dare to use it. He bowed and said, "Yes, Grand Elder." Li Mu said, "I still have something to do. You will be in charge of the corpse sect when I'm not here." Xianxia cupped his fists and said, "I will not disappoint, Grand Elder." Li Mu rewarded him with some Fulu treasures and left the corpse sect. Xianxia accepted the first elder's reward happily. However, he was a little worried. He could hide it for a while, but he couldn't hide it forever. After a year, if he couldn't hand over the refined corpse of the Lord of Heaven, the Sage sect would definitely find out. By then, they would have to face more than just a 5th realm Black Lotus emissary. However, even if he died, he had to refine the 2 corpses. If he could use the corpses of 8th-level cultivators to refine corpses, he would have no regrets even if he died. Xianxia took a deep breath and began to look forward to the return of the Sage sect envoy. 100,000 great mountains, 1,000 demon country. Ever since the fall of the demon emperor, the once unified demon clan had fallen apart. The situation of the major forces ruling over a region had lasted for 3,000 years. Now the entire demon country was going through a change that hadn't happened in the past 3,000 years. In these 3,000 years, the demon country's forces had never stopped changing. Small demon races rose, large demon races fell, and the various forces swallowed each other up. This happened every few years, but the demon country was always able to maintain a balance. Now this balance had been broken. Under the secret instigation of the demon path, the once hostile Thousand Fox Nation and Tianlang Nation actually joined hands and began to annex the surrounding large and small monster race forces. The balance of power in the monster nation was broken. Some of the smaller monster races were in constant fear, while some of the larger monster races chose to surrender. There were also some that were unwilling to submit to the demon path and chose to stubbornly resist to the end. The eastern part of the Yao Nation had completely fallen into the territory of the Thousand Fox Nation. In the past, Thousand Fox Nation's sphere of influence was limited to Thousand Fox Nation and its surroundings. They didn't care about the demon clans outside their sphere of influence. Now, under the orders of the new monarch of Thousand Fox Country and the Grand Elder of Meizong Sect, by Xian, all the experts of Thousand Fox Country and Meizong Sect were out to sweep the mountains in the eastern part of the demon nation and take in the various demon clans. Those who were willing to submit were sent to Thousand Fox Country to accept orders. Those who were unwilling to submit were exterminated and their demon cores and souls were taken. In recent days, some of the smaller demon clans in the demon nation were exterminated. At this moment, the rabid demon clan of Tianfeng Mountain was facing such a situation. The rabid demon clan was one of the weakest demon clans in the demon nation. There were only a dozen or so rabid demons in this clan, and the strongest was only at the 4th realm. Most of them were small demons who had yet to transform. There were many great demons in the demon nation, and they usually didn't dare to show themselves. They could only hide in their cave abodes on Tianfeng Mountain and cultivate silently. On Tianfeng Mountain, a man with an aquiline nose floated in the air. He looked down at the rabbit demons from above and asked calmly, "Have you thought it through?" The transformed rabbit demons looked at each other and shook their heads. If the rabbit demon clan submitted to the Fox clan, they would have to go to Thousand Fox Country and be ordered around by the Fox clan. They wouldn't even have the power to decide their own lives. Not a single rabbit had ever walked out of the Thousand Fox Country alive. It was easy to foresee what would happen to them. They would either be used as cannon fodder and die in battles with other demon clans or become food for the Fox clan. The fourth realm rabbit demon raised his head and said, "Sir, our rabbit demon clan only wants to cultivate here," the aquiline-nosed man said calmly, "so you're not willing to submit?" Beside him, another subordinate said, "Sir, why are you still talking nonsense with them? Take their demon cores and souls. Tonight we'll have spicy rabbit heads and rabbit stew." A hint of greed flashed across the aquiline-nosed man's eyes. Although he was ordered by his superiors to take in the rabbit demon clan, it wouldn't do him any good even if he did. He might as well take the demon core of the leading rabbit demon. The other transformed rabbit demons could be used as cauldrons to absorb their dermic powers. As for the remaining rabbit demons who hadn't transformed, he could bring them back and stew them. A hint of bloodlust flashed across his sharp eyes. He said sternly, "Since you're not willing to submit, then die." As soon as he said that, his body swooped down from the sky. Against the weakest rabbit demon he didn't even bother to use weapons. His hands turned into sharp eagle claws, and his nails shone with a cold light. He grabbed at the fourth realm rabbit demon's abdomen. Although the two demons were both fourth realm, the eagle demon's dermic powers were much stronger than the rabbit demon's. In terms of bloodline, the eagle demon suppressed the rabbit demon. The eagle demon was extremely fast. Although the rabbit demon was more agile and kept dodging, it still couldn't make up for the difference in strength. Poof. At a certain moment, the rabbit demon let out a painful growl. A bloody hole appeared in its abdomen. A bloody demon core floated in the eagle demon's palm. He licked his lips, opened his mouth and swallowed it directly. Most of the core formation stage demon's cultivation was in the demon core. After losing the demon core, the rabbit demon's cultivation immediately fell to the transformation stage. The rabbit demon didn't care about wiping the blood at the corner of his mouth. He gritted his teeth and said, "Run, big brother." The other female rabbit demons had tears of grief and anger on their faces. When they wanted to escape, they found that they were already surrounded by the eagle demon's subordinates. The eagle demon licked the blood at the corner of his mouth and said, "Kill all the male rabbits. Keep the female rabbits and send them to my room tonight." Just as the demons were about to attack, a ray of light flashed across their heads. A young eagle demon raised his head and said angrily, "Who is it? Come down." The eagle demon clan had pledged allegiance to the Thousand Fox Country. No one in the demon kingdom dared to provoke them. Someone actually dared to fly over their heads. The ray of light had already flown over, but when it heard the voice, it flew back and landed on the mountain peak. It was a young and handsome human man. He looked at the young eagle demon and asked, "You called me?" When the eagle demon saw Li Mu, he was stunned for a moment and blurted out, "Human?" The demon kingdom was a forbidden area for humans. Who would have the guts to swagger in the air here? His cultivation shouldn't be high. He didn't expect that not only would he be able to eat a demon core today, he would also be able to swallow a human primordial spirit. The eagle demon was overjoyed and immediately flew towards the young human. A ray of golden light flew out from the young man's hand and turned into a rope that wrapped around the eagle demon's neck. The eagle demon felt that the spiritual power in his body couldn't circulate and fell from the sky. He was shocked and knew that this person was not to be trifled with. He immediately shouted, "I'm a disciple of the Meizong sect in the Thousand Fox Country. If you dare to hurt me, the Meizong sect won't let you go." Meizong sect? Li Mu glanced at him and shook his head. The Meizong sect is getting more and more casual with their recruitment. He came to the Thousand Fox Country alone and just happened to lack first-hand information. He was still worried about where to ask when a demon came to him. Li Mu directly pressed his hand on the eagle demon's head and forcefully searched his soul. The Glory sect sent 3 elders to ambush the Heavenly Lord of Myriad Illusions who was in seclusion. The Heavenly Lord of Myriad Illusions was severely injured and only his primordial spirit managed to escape. The 3 Glory sect elders were also severely injured and are recuperating in the Thousand Fox Country. With the help of the Glory sect elders, Bai Xian's cultivation base has broken through to the 6th level. He is now the king of the Thousand Fox Country and the great elder of Meizong sect. He is currently looking for Huanji in the entire demon country. The information Li Mu found from the eagle demon was similar to what he heard from Lord Ju, but more detailed. The Lord of Illusions was indeed not dead. For existences like them, as long as a trace of their primordial spirit was still alive, it was difficult for them to completely die. The fact that primordial spirit was not captured was also good news. In addition, the demon path really wanted the celestial wolf tribe and the Thousand Fox country to unify the entire demon kingdom. Their goal was self-evident. When the demon kingdom was unified, it would be the time for them to wage war against the Great Zhou. Li Mu finished searching the eagle demon's memories for the past few months. The eagle demon's expression became dull. His mouth opened and saliva flowed out. He let go of his hand and the demon fell to the ground. Then he saw a few rabid demons standing in the distance, looking at him in horror and trembling. Li Mu's throat moved. Wuxia was right. Lady Rabbit and Lady Cat were much cuter than the other demons. Although they had transformed into human form, they still retained their long furry ears. At this moment, due to the shock, their rabbit ears were drooping. Their hands were hanging in front of their chests, and their beautiful faces were pale. However, they looked even cuter and could easily arouse the pity of others. Li Mu could not help but want to go up and rub their ears. We are willing to do anything for benefactor to repay your kindness. Li Mu did not need him to work like an ox or a horse. Making spicy rabbit heads was more like it. However, as the saying went, save the rabbit to the end and send the Buddha to the west. The situation in the Yao nation had changed. If Li Mu abandoned them, they would still be on the same path. That would mean that he had saved them for nothing. He thought for a moment and said, the Yao nation is no longer safe. You can go to the Great Zhou's North County or Zhejiang County and seek refuge with the demon minister of these two counties. After becoming a demon citizen of the Great Zhou, as long as you abide by the law, no one can bully you. If you're willing to go, help me bring these 3 eagles over. Tell the demon order to let the 3 of them reform through labor. After hearing Li Mu describe the treatment of the demon citizens of the Great Zhou, the rabbit demons looked expectant. Li Mu handed the eagle demon to them and turned into the eagle demon's appearance. This scene made the rabbit demons widen their eyes. After the male rabbit demon came back to his senses, he asked carefully, Benefactor, are you going to the Thousand Fox Nation? Li Mu did not answer. The rabbit demon thought for a moment and said, Benefactor, if you're going to the Thousand Fox Nation, it's best to bring us along. That way it'll be easier to gain their trust. Li Mu thought carefully. The rabbit demon's words made sense. If he returned to the Thousand Fox Nation empty-handed as an eagle, it meant that his mission had failed. The Meizong sect would definitely send someone else. If he brought this nest of rabbits with him, the rabbit demon's matter would end here. That makes sense. I'll pick a few people to go to the Thousand Fox Nation with me. Li Mu thought for a moment and pointed at the male rabbit demon. The male rabbit demon's face lit up. Li Mu said, Take the rabbits who haven't transformed and these 3 eagles to the Great Zhou. The rest of you follow me to the Thousand Fox Nation. The male rabbit demon looked at his 4 sisters. Other than him and the rabbit demon who hadn't transformed, they were the others. The Thousand Fox Nation. Li Mu stood at the city gate with 4 rabbit demons behind him. Other than the male rabbit demon and the rabbit who hadn't transformed, there were only 4 female rabbit demons left in the Little Rabbit clan. The 4 rabbit demons looked exactly the same. They were sisters from the same nest. Li Mu sighed in his heart. Things were the same, but the people had changed. At the gate of the Thousand Fox City, a leopard demon looked envious. He said, Eagle 7, you're so lucky. You caught 4 rabbit demons and they look exactly the same. Give me 2 even 1. Li Mu waved his hand and said, Get lost. If I give you 1, the 4 sisters will become 3 sisters. What's the point of that? The leopard demon spat in his heart. This perverted eagle's luck was really good to the extreme. Rabbits always gave birth to litters and there were many sisters. However, it was rare to see all 4 sisters cultivate into a human form. Why didn't such a good thing fall on his head? Li Mu led the 4 rabbit demons into the city and came to a courtyard in the city. As a 4th realm demon, Eagle 7's strength wasn't top-notch, but he wasn't weak either. He had a small house in the city where only 1 eagle lived. Now he had 4 more rabbits. Everyone knew that Eagle 7 was a LSP. Every month, he was given spiritual jades not to cultivate, but to rescue female demons who had lost their footing. In the Thousand Fox country, It was very common for female demons to exchange their bodies for cultivation resources. Now that he caught 4 rabbits from outside, no one doubted him. Everyone was only envious. In Eagle 7's house, Li Mu sat on a chair. 2 rabbit demons were massaging his shoulders and 2 other rabbit demons were massaging his legs. The rabbit demon's surname was Bai. The 4 sisters were called Jingjing, Yingying, Xiaoxiao and Rongrong. They were cute and obedient. Li Mu even wondered if he should keep them in the future and let them serve Lu Hanyan and Li Qing. Wan was already half the master of the house. It wasn't appropriate for her to be a maid. Li Mu didn't stay in the house for long before a bell rang from the direction of the imperial palace. When the bell rang, all the disciples of the Meizong sect in the city had to rush to the gathering place within 15 minutes. Li Mu ordered the 4 sisters to wait in the house. He flew in the direction of the imperial palace. This gathering should be to assign new tasks. After the internal strife of the Meizong sect, a large number of experts were lost. Later, when Bai Xian took power, there was no one under his command. He lowered the standards and recruited many people. The ugly Eagle 7 was summoned at that time. He had greatly lowered the appearance of the Meizong sect. Li Mu arrived at the gathering place. After glancing around, he thought to himself, the Meizong sect only exists in name. In the past, every member of Meizong sect was a handsome man and a beautiful woman. They could easily infiltrate the enemy's inner circle and become undercover agents. Now, Meizong sect's repulsive members would attract the attention of the inner guards because of their looks, let alone infiltrating the imperial court. Li Mu landed on the square in front of the imperial palace. The leopard demon that he saw at the city gate just now walked over. He put his arm around his shoulder and said, Eagle 7, I don't want you to send me off. When you're tired of playing with them, you can let me play with them, okay? Li Mu said, you'd better find them yourself. I'll play with those 4 rabbits for a year. Leopard 5 let go of Li Mu and said, stingy? Chapter 473. Huan Yun, the son of Heaven Lord of Illusion and the Grand Elder of Meizong, was the most important criminal in Thousand Fox City. During the internal strife of Meizong, he and some other elders of Meizong who disobeyed the Bai family had their cultivation sealed and were locked in the dungeon under the palace. Other than Huan Ji, who was not in Thousand Fox Country, Hu Lu, Hu Jiao and all the other elders of Meizong who were loyal to Heaven Lord were captured by the Bai family. Although Huan Yun was powerful, he could only surrender in front of the 7th Realm elders of Sage Sect. Li Mu and the other 2 demons walked into the palace and went down the stone steps into the mountain. In the past 3 days, Leopard 5 and Pig 8 were guarding Huan Yun and the others. Perhaps it was because he was a traitor, but after Bai Xian took power, he treated everything with extreme caution. Even a small task like guarding the door was assigned to the 3 demons. The 3 demons cooperated with each other and supervised each other. No one could play any tricks in the dark. After arriving at the dungeon, Pig 8 snorted and sat comfortably on the chair. He said, "It's so comfortable here. It's much better than guarding the city gate. I have to be exposed to the sun outside. You guys keep watch, I'll take a nap, lazy pig." Leopard 5 snorted and walked deeper into the dungeon. Li Mu followed behind Leopard 5. Their duty was to guard these criminals and prevent them from escaping from the dungeon. If anything happened, they had to report it to their superiors immediately. These former Meizong sect elites had their cultivation sealed. The chains passed through their shoulder blades and they were covered in wounds. Their auras were very weak. Leopard 5 walked all the way to the innermost part of the dungeon. He picked up the whip on the rack and whipped it hard at a figure tied to the rack. The figure's hands and feet were tied. There were also chains passing through his shoulder blades. His hair was disheveled and he looked at Leopard 5 indifferently. Leopard 5 was frightened by this gaze. But he soon realized that no matter how powerful he was in the past and how high his status was, he was just a prisoner now. What was there to be afraid of? Thinking of this, he waved the whip even more frequently. "Do you still think you're the Grand Elder of Meizong sect? How dare you look at me like this? Try looking again." In the past, he didn't even have the qualifications to be looked at by Huan Yun. Now he could stand in front of Huan Yun and humiliate him. This made Leopard 5 feel a sense of accomplishment. It was the current Great Elder Bai Xian's idea to humiliate Huan Yun every day. Not only was he following orders, but he also enjoyed the pleasure of tormenting experts. Huan Yun's cultivation had been sealed, so this kind of whip could not hurt him. Chapter 474. Leopard 5 looked at Eagle 7 who was standing in front of him. His expression turned ugly as he asked, "You want to fight with me?" Li Mu said lightly, "Grand Elder said to let us deal with it, not you. What right do you have to make the decision?" After that, he didn't forget to look at the pig demon beside him and asked, "Don't you think so, Zhu Ba?" Zhu Ba shook his head and said, "You can fight among yourselves. I'm not interested." Leopard 5 looked at Li Mu and said angrily, "Don't you already have those 4 rabbits?" Li Mu glanced at him and said, "Although I have 4 rabbits, I still want a fox." "I haven't tasted a fox yet," Leopard 5 snorted and said, "How can there be such a good thing? Either you give me the 4 rabbits and I'll give you the fox, or you don't fight with me." Li Mu refused, "Sorry I'm a person. Sorry I'm a demon. I always want everything." Leopard 5 didn't waste any more words with Li Mu. He gritted his teeth and asked, "You mean you want to fight with me?" Li Mu said, "Same old rules. Whoever wins gets the fox." The demon race respected strength and also worshipped the strong. Under such circumstances, it was common to determine the winner through battle. Only the winner had the right to speak. Leopard 5 snorted and said, "Don't forget you lost to me 3 times. I won't show mercy later." Li Mu grinned and said, "Coincidentally, I just ate a rabbit demon's inner core. My magic power increased greatly and I was just about to take revenge on you." This wasn't the place to fight. The two walked out of the dungeon and saw Bai Xian standing outside with his arms crossed. He was looking at them with interest. Leopard 5 wasn't confident and asked, "Grand Elder, Bai Xian waved his hand and said, "It's okay. You guys fight. Don't worry about me." Although he had not caught Huanji, he had caught Hulu. He was in a good mood today. When he heard the conversation between the eagle and the demon, he had the urge to watch the show. In an open space outside the entrance of the dungeon, both of them had thrown away their weapons. For the demon race, their bodies were their most powerful magical weapons. Under normal circumstances, they would also choose this kind of primitive and violent method to fight. Leopard 5 had been enduring Eagle 7 for a long time. Not only because he had obtained quadruplet rabbit demons, but also because of his greed. He faced the sky and let out a roar. Black fur grew on the outside of his body. His eyes turned red and his arms turned into leopard claws. His sharp nails shone with a cold light. He bared his fangs and said, "Mixed hair bird, I'm going to pluck all your feathers today." As soon as he finished speaking, he, who had already turned into a half-demon, shot towards Li Mu. His speed was extremely fast, so fast that several afterimages appeared in the void. Speed was the leopard clan's racial talent. Although Leopard 5 was only at the 4th realm, if he unleashed his full speed, a typical 5th realm demon would be able to catch up to him in no time. Behind Bai Xian, the demons watched with trepidation. This leopard demon relied on speed. It would be hard to find a match for him in the same realm. Then they looked at the eagle demon opposite them. Although this demon did not reveal his true form, his hands had already turned into claws. His hands looked white and slender, but it was definitely not a problem for him to split gold and stone. The leopard demon was the fastest on the ground. The sky was the eagle demon's territory. If they were to compete in speed, the eagle demon would definitely win against the leopard demon of the same realm. However, the leopard demon still had the advantage in a physical fight on the ground. It could be seen from this battle. The eagle demon was at a disadvantage almost from the beginning. The reason he did not lose was because his fighting style was too ruthless. He was almost sacrificing himself to injure the eagle demon. The leopard demon did not want to exchange injuries with him. He went from being proactive in the beginning to being passive in defense. At the edge of the open space, Bai Xian looked at the eagle demon with admiration. He did not lack powerful warriors, but he lacked such fearless warriors. The snake under Huanji's command was like this. Bai Xian used to envy Huanji for having such a subordinate. Now he had one too. Whoosh. Leopard 5's sharp claws cut through the air and left a few bloody grooves on Eagle 7's arm. However, Eagle 7's claws also landed on his abdomen. If Leopard 5 did not dodge quickly, this claw would have dug out his demon core. Even so, a wound was left on his abdomen. Leopard 5's face was pale and his eyes were filled with fear. He was scared. He was really scared. He only wanted a female fox, but Eagle 7 wanted his life. Wasn't it just a woman? He could just give it to him. This perverted eagle, it was not enough that he had 4 female rabbits at home. He would not even let a female fox go. Sooner or later, all his fur would fall off from excessive indulgence. Thinking of this, Leopard 5 retreated as fast as he could and shouted, "I won't fight with you. I won't fight with you, okay? You lunatic. At this moment, there were a few wounds on his body that were still bleeding. However, Eagle 7 was even more miserable. There were more than a dozen wounds on his body and he was covered in blood. Although his cultivation was not high, the aura he emitted made even Realm 5 demons tremble in fear. He was like an Azura that walked out of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. Bai Xian walked out slowly and looked at him. He asked, "What's your name?" Li Mu wiped the blood on his face and said, "Your subordinate is Eagle 7. Bai Xian said, "You can tell me your real name." When the demons around him heard this, they were all surprised. Leopard 5 was about to go crazy with jealousy. Most of the demons in Thousand Fox Country did not have names. For example, Leopard 5, Pig 8 and Eagle 7. Only the strong had the right to give human names. For example, the Fox Country royal family and the former Grand Elder Huan Yun and Elder Huan Ji. The fact that the Grand Elder allowed Eagle 7 to have a name meant that he admired Eagle 7 a lot. The demons that were given names by him were all powerful elders of Maison. Li Mu thought for a moment and said, "My surname is Peng. Because my mother likes to eat fish and my father likes to eat geese, they call me Peng Yuyan." Bai Xian asked, "Peng Yuyan, are you willing to become my personal guard?" Li Mu cupped his fists and bowed. He said loudly, "Your subordinate is willing." Bai Xian stretched out his hand. With a flash of white light, a pill appeared in his palm. He threw the pill to Li Mu and said, "After you're healed, report to the palace." Li Mu said in a deep voice, "Yes." Bai Xian looked at him one last time and left with his hands behind his back. Even though Leopard 5 was extremely jealous, he still ran up immediately and said with a smile, "I was wrong in the past. I hope Commander Eagle will be magnanimous and not blame me." Li Mu could not be bothered with him and strode towards the dungeon. Leopard 5 still had a smile on his face, but he was cursing in his heart. This old pervert was so impatient. He would die in a woman's belly sooner or later. Then he hurriedly chased after him and said, "Commander Eagle, I'll arrange it for you." Not long after, in a sealed cell in the dungeon, whose 6th cultivation was sealed. At this moment, she was no different from an ordinary human woman. She had always been fearless, but now she had a panicked expression on her face. Leopard 5 closed the door of the cell and shouted from outside, "I'll be right outside. If Commander Eagle needs anything, just tell me." Li Mu walked toward Hu 6 step by step. Hu 6 looked at the eagle demon covered in blood, her beautiful face full of despair. As he slowly approached, Hu 6 suddenly slammed her head against the wall. Li Mu stretched out his hand and an invisible force controlled her. Li Mu looked at Hu 6 and said indifferently, "Although your cultivation is sealed, you're still a 5th realm expert. Even if your body is dead, your primordial spirit is still here." Hu 6 said fiercely, "I don't believe you're still interested in a corpse." Li Mu smiled and said, "I won't let you become a corpse." Hu 6 knew that she couldn't die even if she wanted to. She closed her eyes in despair and said unwillingly, "If I knew I would be tainted by a beast like you, I would have let that Li guy take advantage of me earlier." Li Mu stopped in his tracks. He had something to say but didn't know where to go. He glanced at Hu 6 and said with his voice, "In your dreams. I told you you're too old. I don't want you. It's better if it's Phantom Princess." Hu 6 was stunned. She pointed at Li Mu and was so shocked that she couldn't speak. You, Li Mu continued, "Stupid fox, it wasn't easy for me to come in undercover. Don't ruin it." Hu 6 was stunned for a long time. Then she sat on the ground and hugged her knees as she cried. After falling into Bai Xian's hands, she met 2 lechers. She thought that she was about to face the darkest moment of her life. She didn't expect that the lechers would be lechers, but they were the lechers she wanted to see even in her dreams. Although she didn't get along well with Li Mu every time they met, it was really great to see him here. In just an instant, she went from a harsh winter to a warm spring. This happiness made her want to cry. Outside the door, Leopard 5 sighed. This beautiful fox demon was also taken by that mixed-hair bird. That mixed-hair bird must have already started his operation. Just listen to how sad this fox demon is crying. Inside the cell, Li Mu squatted down and nudged Hu 6 who was sobbing softly. "Don't cry. Can you scream a little? That way your acting will be more realistic." Chapter 475. Outside the cell, Leopard 5 put his ear to the door. The door suddenly opened and he almost went in. Li Mu looked at him with an unfriendly expression and asked, What are you doing here? Leopard 5 said seriously, I'm here waiting for Commander Eagle's orders. Li Mu kicked him in the butt and said mercilessly, I don't need you here. Get lost. I'll get lost, I'll get lost. Leopard 5 patted his butt and ran away obediently. However, he was complaining in his heart. This Eagle 7 is not only lecherous but also stingy. He won't lose anything by listening to her voice. Li Mu walked back to the cell and dispelled the idea of asking who 6 to bark. That scene was too embarrassing. Not only was Fox 6 embarrassed but Li Mu was also embarrassed. He decided to stay here for 2 hours. Besides Fox 6, no one would know what he was doing in these 2 hours. Hulu was no longer crying. Instead, she silently untied her skirt. Li Mu was stunned and said, What are you doing? Fox 6 took off her skirt and only wore a pink doo-doo. She said, You're still being wishy-washy at this time. Are you waiting for me to help you take it off? Li Mu waved his hand and she put her skirt back on. He explained to Fox 6, I came up with a temporary solution to save you. If I didn't stand up, the one standing here would be that leopard. Fox 6 said, I know you don't like me but there's no other way. Do you want to fail your undercover mission? Li Mu said, I'll stay here for 2 hours. If you cooperate with me and scream, it'll be easy to fool him. Fox 6 shook her head and said, You're thinking too simply. Bai Xian can tell at a glance whether I'm a virgin or not. The next time he sees me, it'll be the time your identity will be exposed. Li Mu stood there in a daze. It wasn't until now that he realized he had made a fatal mistake. The Fox clan had a special talent. Whether the other party was a human or a demon, they could tell whether the other party was a virgin or not. Xiao Bai had displayed this talent in front of him more than once. In other words, as long as the experts of the Fox clan looked at Hulu, they would know that Li Mu hadn't done anything to her this time. Then they would suspect him. At that time, all of Li Mu's previous efforts would be wasted. Li Mu glanced at Fox 6 and couldn't help but complain, You're not young anymore. Why haven't you found a partner yet? Not to be outdone, Hulu said, I'm only 2 years older than the Empress of Great Zhou. Isn't she still a virgin? Li Mu knocked on her head. How dare you? His Majesty is not someone a fox like you can talk about. Fox 6 rubbed his head and lay on the bed as if he had given up. He said, Then think of a way. I don't care anymore. Li Mu rubbed his chin and thought of a solution. Although Hulu had already accepted her fate and laid down, it was impossible for him to turn her from a young girl into a woman if he really had sex with her. He could only find another reason. In the dungeon, Leopard 5 was stunned when he saw Eagle 7 walk out of the cell after only half an hour. He blurted out, So fast. Li Mu said angrily, Who are you scolding? Leopard 5 knew that he had said something wrong, so he immediately smiled apologetically and said, Commander Eagle, why don't you play with her for a while? Li Mu said, I didn't expect that fox to be a virgin. The purine in her body is still there. Wouldn't it be a waste to push her away now? When I completely refine the snake demon's demon core and improve my cultivation, I can use her purine to break through to the 5th realm and become an elder. He looked at Leopard 5 and Pig 8 and warned, Right, that fox is mine. If any one of you dares to touch her, I'll cut off your manhood and make it into wine. Pig 8 quickly said, You know I'm not interested in foxes. Leopard 5 also promised. After Li Mu left, Leopard 5's eyes were filled with jealousy. All of this was supposed to be his, but Eagle 7 took it away from him. When Eagle 7's cultivation broke through, the gap between him and this mixed eagle would be irreparable. After Leopard 5's jealousy, he was also very regretful. If he had risked his life like Eagle 7 just now, perhaps he would have been appreciated by the Grand Elder and become the Grand Elder's personal guard. His future as a demon would be limitless. Unfortunately, there were no ifs. Li Mu's excuse was excellent. No one suspected that there was a problem with Eagle 7's identity. However, many people suspected that there was a problem with his body. 2 days later, a small circle of Maisong sect began to spread that Eagle 7's body couldn't take it anymore. In less than 10 minutes, he surrendered his spear to the fox demon. As for keeping the purine, it was just an excuse for him to cover up his inability. It wasn't until some meddlesome Maisong experts went to the dungeon to take a look and found that the fox demon's purine was indeed still there that the rumor was dispelled. The first purine of a 5th realm fox demon was so precious that many demons were drooling over it. The prisoners in the dungeon could be dealt with at will. As long as they were alive, the Grand Elder wouldn't care. However, no one dared to have any thoughts about that fox. Firstly, that eagle was lucky enough to be appreciated by the Grand Elder and became his personal guard. His status was above ordinary Meizong sect disciples and no one was willing to offend him. Secondly, many people had seen the battle between Eagle 7 and Leopard 5 that day. That kind of fearless and suicidal fighting style had left a deep psychological shadow in many people's hearts. After that battle, everyone in Thousand Fox Country knew that Eagle 7 was a hungry pervert. He was willing to give up his life for a woman who dared to touch the fox he fancied. You're tuning in to the Phantom Sword Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.